Chapter 126. In the two candy balls, Sirius rolled his eyes and vomited all over the place, and Pettigrew, sorry, the whole mouse was soaked in vomit. Adam threw the candy ball in his hand with disgust the moment he saw it clearly, and looked at the palm of his hand. Fortunately, the vent was small enough, and the vomit was too sticky to flow out. He threw a sleeping card over, and then used a soaking card to wash and dry the man and the mouse. Adam used the elimination card to erase their memories and restarted their first meeting. After Sirius woke up slowly, he immediately found that his state was not right. He was actually in a human posture now. He was exposed? What was he doing? Sirius frowned, racking his brains but couldn't remember. Instead he felt nauseous. Could it be that he was hit by oblivion? Hey? You're awake. Sirius turned his head alertly and found a boy in Hogwarts uniform sitting in front of him with a smile. The operation was successful. Congratulations on becoming a girl. Sirius subconsciously clamped his legs, then realized something was wrong. Do you know who I am? Although he didn't know what happened, he was now a wanted criminal. Judging from the logo on his chest, the child opposite him belonged to Hufflepuff. Maybe he could use this too. Seeing the mouse in the plastic box next to Adam, Sirius's mind suddenly slid uncontrollably into boundless anger. Everything he had just thought about was burned by anger, and there was only one thought left in his mind: kill the traitor. There was no wand at hand, but he still had the fangs and teeth of the animagus form. With a move of his fingers, Sirius, who was captured by the floating card, desperately performed various postures of vicious dog hunting in the air. 15 minutes later, Sirius drooped his limbs weakly, his tongue drooped from his mouth, and he gasped like a bellows, but his eyes were still staring at Pettigrew fiercely. After a few minutes, Sirius looked at Adam as if he had just woken up from a dream. Calm down. Adam snapped his fingers, and Sirius fell from the air and turned back into a human form. What do you know? Sirius was not stupid. After calming down, he thought carefully and found many clues. These clues all showed that Adam was special. He seemed to know a lot of things. I didn't know much at first, but now I know everything. Adam took a sip from the crystal glass next to him. The amber liquid was clear and the crystal glass was elegant. Just when Sirius was trying to determine what kind of wine it was, he saw the bubbles rising in the liquid. I was stunned by the other party's silent and wandless floating spell and words just now. I almost forgot that the child in front of me was still a student of Hogwarts. Thinking of this, recalling the way he was controlled by the floating spell and couldn't resist just now, Sirius's expression was a little subtle. Is the quality of the young wizards in Hogwarts so high now? But remembering that Adam was just a student, Sirius was relieved. The other party didn't hand him over to the Dementors, which meant that he did know at least part of the truth. At least he knew that he was wronged. Who are you? Did you catch me here? Introduce myself, my name is Adam Reed. Adam? Hearing this name, Sirius couldn't help licking the corner of his mouth. He hadn't had a good meal since he escaped from prison, and he had been deeply impressed by this name in the castle during this period. However, before Sirius could savor the cookies he secretly ate that day, he heard Adam say, "As for the person who caught you here, yes, it was me." Why? Adam looked at him in surprise, with an expression of "listen to what you are saying," and then picked up the newspaper on the table and pointed to the front page. To be precise, he pointed to the reward of 10,000 gold galleons below the wanted poster of Sirius on the front page. Sirius? Should I be thankful? The person who found him was a kind Hufflepuff. After learning about his experience, he resolutely gave up the high reward and did not hand him in. Speaking of which, how did you catch me? Sirius couldn't help but recall again, but no matter how he recalled, it was blank. Ugh. Well, it's not completely blank, at least there is still a burst of vomiting. It was a coincidence. Adam looked lost in memory. That day after class, I saw you stirring the for concrete number 17, you know, the key to Fourier transform lies in the lavender scent at the end, and the result is red carp, green carp and donkey. Oh, that's really a coincidence. Sirius was in a trance for a moment, and then showed an expression of looking back on the past. Well, as expected, the effect will be much better with the replacement card, and with the confusion spell, he even saved the effort of making up excuses. It's a pity that you have to establish the other party's goodwill towards you at the beginning, and then use the love card to magnify the loopholes in the other party's mind, so as to confuse the other party's cognition more peacefully. And it's hard to say whether the first meeting repeated so many times before has some impact on the other party's mind, which made this time so smooth. A few casual words made Sirius casts his animagus, and Adam flicks his finger to make Sirius fall into a coma for who knows how many times, and erases the memory of their first meeting for who knows how many times. Adam has a complicated feeling towards Sirius. On the one hand, because of the relationship with Professor Snape and the fact that he will be affected by him this school year, he has no good feelings towards Sirius. But for this man who allowed himself to be imprisoned in Azkaban for so many years out of self-blame, and resolutely escaped from prison after seeing his godson in danger, and swam back to land from Azkaban in the form of a black dog, sleeping in the open air to save him. The guy who was the godson. Although he thought that he was not very smart, Adam could not really hate him. Using him to test the results of his magic research was Adam's small revenge for being affected by the Dementors this time and being interrupted during the barbecue last time. There was no other way. He really couldn't find any test subjects that were smart enough to give feedback and that he could do it without any psychological pressure. The only thing he could do was a little dwarf without any guilt, but Pettigrew was too ugly. Every time he thought of this, Adam couldn't help but feel he sighed that he had no foresight at the beginning. If he had known, he would have used a double card to copy a Lockhart. After floating Sirius and Pettigrew, Adam randomly threw them in 2 abandoned classrooms. He didn't know whether they would meet each other again after waking up. As for how to properly solve the problems of the Ministry of Magic mistakenly imprisoned an innocent person in Azkaban for more than 10 years and the hero promoted by the Ministry of Magic is actually a despicable traitor, it is even more none of his business. Let Professor Dumbledore and Sirius Godson worry about it. Chapter 127. Throwing Sirius aside, Adam still had his own things to do. After studying magic for so long, he didn't just study how to look cool, but also had some very practical experience. Not long after pretending to accidentally discover the Room of Requirement, Adam had already obtained the Ravenclaw's diadem inside, and he even got this Horcrux before the diary. But Adam has never had a good way to deal with the soul fragments inside and keep the diadem intact. If Voldemort is not a guy who wastes good things, several Horcruxes are basically treasures: Salazar Slytherin's locket, Helga Hufflepuff's gold cup, Rowena Ravenclaw's diadem, Marvolo Gaunt's ring. Harry Potter can barely be counted. If possible, Adam still hopes to deal with Voldemort's soul fragments separately without damaging the carrier, at least to keep Helga Hufflepuff's gold cup. While exploring the combination of Clow cards, Adam accidentally discovered a combination that can do this, a wonderful combination. After looking at the crown from Lady Rowena Ravenclaw, which had been restored to its original glory, Adam took out another Horcrux in his hand. Marvolo Gaunt's ring, or Resurrection Stone. The ring itself was crudely made, and Adam disdained the ring setting and threw it in the ruins of the Gaunt old house. Adam now only had the Resurrection Stone originally embedded in it. Holding the Resurrection Stone in his hand, the protection of the shield completely ignored the curse on it, just like when Adam turned the Gaunt old house upside down to find the ring. By the way, the location of the Gaunt old house was provided by Mr. Mundungus Fletch, who did not want to reveal his name. At that time in Hogsmeade Village, this guy was caught by Adam because of his dirty hands and feet, and because of his good attitude of admitting his mistakes, he won the opportunity for leniency. Adam was very satisfied with his attitude, but the Basilisk and the Acromantula seemed a little disappointed. Now Mundungus was employed by Adam to help Adam collect some information, such as the information on poaching and smuggling magical animals in the black market, and the location of Gaunt's old house. After a moment of distraction, Adam looked at the Resurrection Stone in his hand and used the magic of the double card to copy the Resurrection Stone into 2 copies. The magic of the replacement card was then activated, and the soul fragments on the 2 Horcruxes exchanged carriers with each other. Next, remove the magic of the double card, a magic stone disappeared, and the soul fragment attached to it lost its carrier, leaving only a mass of matter more ethereal than smoke, which dissipated with a gust of wind. At the same time, the soul fragment on the other Resurrection Stone also disappeared with the removal of the double card magic. After a series of operations, Adam successfully obtained a Resurrection Stone with the soul fragment removed. This method was thought of by Adam when he was experimenting with Rowena Ravenclaw's crown yesterday. Of course, the crown copied by the double card was used. When he succeeded for the first time, Adam couldn't help but swear. He is really a genius. This method can perfectly solve the soul fragments on the dead object Horcrux. As for Harry, let's talk about it later. The original route is quite effective. Adam will try his best to let Voldemort follow the original trap. The only thing that needs to be changed is the ownership of the Elder Wand, but this is actually very easy to operate. Adam looked at the resurrection stone in his hand with satisfaction, thinking about what kind of jewelry to make it into. Although the effect of the resurrection stone seems to have no practical significance, it is still very collectible as a deathly hallow. Time is still passing day by day. On a rainy day, the Slytherin team lost unexpectedly in the game against the Hufflepuff team. The captain of Slytherin angrily scolded the Seeker Draco, thinking that he was the main reason for their defeat, and threatened to replace him in the next game. Facing Gryffindor, Draco didn't have Harry's skill to move freely in the wind and rain, and facing Hufflepuff, Draco didn't have Cedric's physique to stand firm in the wind and rain. I always feel that this doesn't seem to be a compliment. Cedric's expression was a little subtle when he heard this, but then he was attracted by the large table of dishes in front of him. 3 of the Hufflepuff team were his good friends, and the rest were basically acquaintances. Cedric entrusted him to prepare a celebratory banquet for everyone, and Adam would naturally not refuse. For this reason, Adam even served the roasted acromanthus. The invited Ravenclaw seeker Chu-Jong said that she couldn't accept it, so Adam helped her change a bowl of rock sugar bird's nest. Ahem, change one for me too. Cedric glanced at the fragrant 8-eyed giant spider and swallowed hard. Looking at the teammates who were eating voraciously, he knew that the roasted 8-eyed giant spider was absolutely delicious, but he still resolutely pushed the 8-eyed giant spider away from him. Adam looked at him in surprise, then looked at Chu-Jong who was drinking rock sugar bird's nest in small sips, with a blush on his cheeks, and smiled knowingly. Oh! Adam deliberately dragged out the ending tone, and watched the shyness on Cedric's face turn into shame and anger, and even showed signs of anger, before he helped him change a plate of scones. Cedric looked at the scones in front of him, and then looked at the rock sugar bird's nest in front of Chu-Jong, and a question mark popped up in his head. Is it wrong? He paid for this meal. Everyone ate delicious food and drank spicy drinks, but he ate scones? There's nothing else, there are only 2 8-eyed giant spiders left, you can eat them or not. Faced with Cedric's question mark, Adam spread his hands. Cedric wanted to say something, but Chu-Jong pulled his clothes. Forget it, it's so late, let's eat together. Looking at the rock sugar bird's nest pushed between the 2 of them, Cedric looked at Adam again, and couldn't help showing some gratitude and admiration in his eyes, secretly giving Adam a thumbs up. Thank you, boss, I'll come again next time. After dinner, Cedric found Adam to thank him for his help again. Adam said that this was nothing, and then introduced his business to Cedric: wedding candy, cakes and wedding banquets one-stop service, now book to enjoy 20% discount, and also send a luxury special effects gift package 10 miles of flowers and snow. 10 miles of flowers and snow all over the sky, these 2 special effects don't match. It doesn't matter, you can use one this time and the other next time. Next time. Ahem, I mean if there are any other banquets next time, you can also find me, anyway, I'll keep this for you. Thinking that even if he and Chu-Jong can't get married in the end, they will always get married in the future, Cedric finally took out the money. Order 1. Okay, then I have to take a look at the birthday banquets, housewarming banquets, enrollment banquets, graduation banquets, full moon banquets here. Finally, Cedric looked at his drained wallet and couldn't help thinking about whether the banquets he just ordered were really necessary. Well, it's necessary. Back to the dormitory, looking at Adam who was counting the money, Bernard was a little speechless. You are not short of money, so why do you take orders even decades later? You don't understand the joy that the process of making money brings to people. Adam flicked his thumb, and a gold galleon was bounced up and caught by him. So, Adam, are you accepting the family dinner? Chapter 128. Family dinner. Adam glanced at Colin who had spoken. What kind of dinner is your family going to have? Has your sister found a date? Not yet. Colin recalled their last visit to Hogsmeade and couldn't help but twitch his eyes. But my mother wrote to me and said that she, my father and Kelly will be there when we go to Hogsmeade this weekend. A family letter, full of nostalgia for food, and the concern for Colin is limited to the social etiquette in the first sentence, which can be said to be very real. Adam thought about it and nodded. No problem. The weekend came soon, and Adam conquered Colin's family with a table of 4 cold dishes, 4 hot dishes, 2 soups, and 1 dessert. Mr. Berg patted his chest and said that he would definitely help Adam find a suitable restaurant location. Even if the neighbors were driven away, this restaurant must be opened next to their house. After declining the enthusiastic invitation from Colin's family, Adam and his friends had a small gathering at the Three Broomsticks. I think I saw Cedric just now. Colin touched his chin and analyzed calmly. But he went in the direction of Honeyduke's candy store. Hasn't that store been bought by Adam? Why did he go there? Bernard sighed. Is it possible that there is another store called Mrs. Putafoot Tea House in that direction? Does he like to drink tea? Bernard pinched his nose and gave up on continuing to communicate, so as not to lead the children astray. Butterbeer is here. Adam came back with 5 cups of butterbeer, and this time the cups seemed to be a little bigger than the last time. I remember that there have been no new activities in the grocery store during this period. The business of the Three Broomsticks should not be affected more, right? After taking a sip, Adam looked at the glass in his hand. I think it's probably because. Uther was halfway through his words when he suddenly heard a familiar voice. What brings you here, Minister? This was Madame Rosmerta's voice, but Uther didn't hear her voice just now. Uther turned around and saw Professor Flitwick sitting not far away. Oh, and Professor McGonagall, Hagrid, and the British Minister of Magic. Uther recalled that he vaguely remembered that guy seemed to be called Fudge? What else could it be? Fudge took the wine he ordered and sighed. Of course it's about Sirius. He showed up in Hogwarts. Before, the Dementors broke into Hogwarts, causing him to be scolded by Dumbledore and a group of parents. Lucius even blamed him for his son's fall from the broom. If possible, he didn't want to see Dumbledore again this year. It's a pity that Sirius is the only one who has successfully escaped from Azkaban. This is too bad. Letting him out every day is a provocation to the authority of the Ministry of Magic. He has to come to Hogwarts again. Oh, it's about Halloween. I heard about it. Hagrid, did you tell everyone in the bar? Professor McGonagall's somewhat annoyed voice followed by Ms. Rosmerta's voice. Hogwarts' internal information was leaked, and there was no second suspect for the person who did it. Professor McGonagall, you have to believe me, I didn't mean it. Adam turned his head to look at Hagrid, who put down the wine glass that was a little small for him, and scratched his beard with his thick fingers with a little uneasiness. That day. I remember I just drank a few glasses of wine. Okay Hagrid, don't mention the past anymore. Professor Flitwick comforted him with a few words, and Hagrid was moved to wipe his eyes. Ms. Rosmerta was not very interested in the communication between the professors. She leaned back in her chair and looked at Fudge with some gossip. So, Minister, you think he is still here, still near the castle, right? Yes, although the professors searched the castle thoroughly and found nothing, I believe he is here. Fudge said firmly. So, do you know how many times the Dementors have searched my bar? Ms. Rosmerta's expression suddenly turned cold. 3 times, 3 times. They scared away all my customers. Business has been difficult recently. Do you want to continue searching? Hearing this, Uther looked at Adam. That's exactly what I wanted to say, probably because of the Dementors, the business of the Three Broomsticks is even worse. Oh, dear, I don't like them either, but that is a necessary measure, no ally? This is also for the safety of your bar, just like Hogwarts. Fudge tried to get away with it. Hogwarts doesn't welcome Dementors either. Professor McGonagall snorted coldly. She remembered Harry who was hurt by Dementors twice. After being scolded by the 2 people in a row, Fudge's confident and well-controlled expression just now was completely broken. He avoided looking at Ms. Rosmerta and Professor McGonagall awkwardly, picked up the wine glass and took a few sips, and handed the empty glass to Ms. Rosmerta. Another glass of butter beer. He didn't drink very well, and he had something to do later, so it was not suitable for him to consume too much alcohol. When Ms. Rosmerta came back, Fudge began to complain. I don't really want to see such a scene. Dumbledore also told me before that this has a bad influence, but you have to understand me too. Since the establishment of Azkaban, no one has ever successfully escaped from it. If he is allowed to go unpunished, how will everyone view the other prisoners in Azkaban? There is no doubt that everyone will doubt whether the remaining prisoners will also escape, and then doubt whether the Ministry of Magic is capable of imprisoning these criminals and protecting their safety. Professor Flitwick sighed. Well, there is no doubt that, yes, I mean someone will escape. Adam drank a sip of butter beer silently, then frowned, rubbed his thumb on the handle of the glass, and the clear yellow liquid in the glass suddenly turned amber. Happy water is still better. Yes. This is exactly what I am worried about. Fudge drank a sip of butter beer. And you also know, Sirius, how dangerous that person is. As soon as these words came out, everyone at the table fell silent. Sirius. After a long pause, Ms. Rosmerta sighed. Among the many people who joined the mysterious man, the one I find most unbelievable is probably him. Who could have thought he would actually become that kind of person and kill so many people? Anyone who has seen what he looked like in school would not believe such a thing. Who said it wasn't? But you know, that's not all, Rosmerta. Fudge frowned. In fact, he has done more serious and worse things. Is it not good for us to just sit here and listen? Cologne couldn't help but whispered. What are you afraid of? We are not eavesdropping. Bernard looked indifferent. There was nothing blocking them from the professor's table. There was a tree originally, but it was moved by a student at another table with a spell. So the professors should have seen them. Since they continued to talk, it means that they are not afraid of being heard. It's strange, why do people always ignore our existence? Adam couldn't help but look at the badgers on the chest of their robes. It can't be that their badger house has a low presence, right? Chapter 129. Someone at the next table added a little, telling the story of how Sirius betrayed the Potters and how Pettigrew died heroically to stop him. A story about the betrayal of a good brother. Uther took a sip of butter beer and looked at Bernard. What do you think of our paranoid mister? It's not surprising. I've seen a lot of this kind of thing. There's nothing new under the Sunday. Bernard narrowed his eyes. Is it that Sirius has finally revealed his true face after hiding for many years, and Pettigrew has burst into courage? Or is Pettigrew the one who hides the deepest, causing Sirius to suffer injustice for decades? Or maybe the Potters designed this fake death, but they actually have other plans. But the Potter's home is protected by the Fidelius charm. Uther, who has seen Adam's safe house, reminded. Magic makes the already complicated truth even more complicated and difficult to discern. Bernard sighed. Why doesn't the Ministry of Magic use truth serum to interrogate the prisoner directly? Eugene suddenly spoke. The core of the Fidelius charm is that the secret keeper must not leak the secret, so it is not truly flawless. Cologne's face was happy. Do you also think that Sirius betrayed the Potters? No, that would be too risky. Everyone knows that he is the secret keeper. He can choose a more covered way, and as far as I know, the secret keeper can be replaced. Remember what Professor McGonagall said. Cologne frowned and thought for a while, and picked out a suitable sentence from what Professor McGonagall said. Professor Dumbledore suspects that there is a traitor among them. So you suspect that the one who did it is actually the traitor? Yet. Eugene nodded and looked at the butterbeer. Colin scratched his head. I still think Sirius is more suspicious. If he didn't do it, why did he stay in Azkaban for so many years without appealing? Hasn't he escaped directly now? As for the appeal, Bernard sneered. If his appeal is successful, doesn't it mean that the Ministry of Magic at that time arrested people at random without a complete chain of evidence? If the Minister of Magic had not changed, he would not have been arrested in Azkaban if he had the ability to successfully appeal. Uther and Eugene did not comment on this. Colin could not help but frown and looked at Adam. What about Adam? What do you think? I think, the secret keeper of the Fidelius charm should choose himself after all. Adam drank a sip of happy water. Makes sense. Uther sighed. Eliminate the possibility of leaks at the root. Anything that comes out of your mouth and enters your ears is no longer a secret. If you really want to keep it secret, the best way is not to tell anyone. Everyone nodded after hearing Adam's opinion. After returning to the dormitory, when everyone had finished their midnight snack, washed up and prepared to go to bed, Bernard suddenly spoke. Do you have a secret in your heart that you absolutely cannot tell others? Just answer yes or no. I'll say my answer first, which is yes. In silence, Bernard quietly waited for everyone's answer. No. The first person to speak was Cologne. Seeing that he was racking his brains to recall, you can tell that his answer was really from the heart. Yes. Eugene was the second to speak. At this moment, Uther asked. Can't you tell anyone? Yes, if you can tell anyone, it doesn't count. Uther glanced at Adam. No. Holding Xiao K and SPI in his left and right hands, Adam smiled back. Yes. Uther raised his eyebrows. Bernard lay on the bed the whole time, closed his eyes and listened to everyone's answers, showing a satisfied smile. Thank you for your honesty. After the days of going to Hogsmeade Village, everyone's study and life returned to normal again. Adam watched with regret that the last dance class, crossed out, and the self-protection content of the care of magical creatures class were finished, and this part of his attention could finally be divided for other things. For example, the crown left by Rowena Ravenclaw, which had been in his hands for a long time, has now been purified of the soul fragments on this crown. I believe Professor Flitwick will like this gift. Just as Adam was thinking about how to make up the story of how he got the crown, Eugene pushed open the dormitory door and rushed in. Haha! They are coming back this Christmas. Who? Who is coming back? Cologne was writing the homework to be checked in class tomorrow, and looked up in confusion. It's none of your business, write quickly. Bernard was entrusted by Cologne to keep an eye on. He had to finish his homework before he could do anything else. He was sitting next to Cologne. When he saw him raise his head, he pushed his head back down. Are your parents coming back? Uther was standing in front of the floor-length mirror combing his hair with sleepy eyes. Every time he woke up, his half-long hair would give him a different hairstyle. That's right. They said that this exploration went very smoothly and they will come back to see us this Christmas. Eugene sat on the bed for a few seconds and stood up. Should I buy new clothes? Will they recognize me? Will I recognize them then? They should at least know where your home is, right? Bernard turned a page of the book in his hand and said without looking up. There are only you and your grandmother in your family, right? They can't mistake you. Oh. Right. Should I make some preparations? Eugene walked back and forth in the dormitory and looked at Adam. Adam, I want to buy some snacks and a cake. Are there any dishes that are easy to carry and heat up and eat? Yes, what kind do you want? Eugene was silent for a while. He remembered that he didn't know what his parents liked to eat, or he didn't know what his parents liked at all. But it doesn't matter, he still has his grandmother. Even if his daughter-in-law is away from home all year round and she is not very familiar with her, she can't possibly not know what her son likes to eat. Eugene immediately sent a letter to his grandmother, telling her that his parents would be back at Christmas, and asking her if she knew his parents' preferences, especially in terms of food. After waiting for 3 days and some tormenting expectations, Eugene finally waited for his grandmother's reply. Returning to the dormitory with the envelope, Eugene excitedly opened the envelope and took out the letter, but when he saw the content on the letter, the excitement and smile on his face disappeared. What did you say? X4. My grandmother said. After all, he couldn't say what he just said again. Eugene stretched out his trembling hand and handed the letter to everyone. Adam, who was sitting opposite Eugene, took the letter and looked at it, and his pupils shrank suddenly. Chapter 130. The letter paper was not big, and even if it was filled up, not many words could be written, but the amount of information was explosive. The first sentence at the beginning was that Eugene's grandmother asked him not to go back for Christmas, and the following explanation was the reason why Adam was so shocked. 2 months ago, your parents had an accident while exploring the ruins. Their bodies were sent back by the friends who explored the ruins with them, and they were buried directly after they were sent back. The bodies were not damaged to the point of being unrecognizable. I checked before that, and they were indeed your parents. Eugene's grandmother explained that she knew that Eugene had always had a strong yearning for his parents, and she was afraid that Eugene would be hit too hard, so she didn't tell him. She even planned to maintain the lie of parents exploring the ruins. If nothing unexpected happened, she would keep it a secret until the day she passed away. But unexpectedly, Eugene had received a letter from his parents before. So, that letter, was it sent by a ghost? Cologne's little face turned pale with fear. Is it possible that Eugene's parents sent the letter first, and then encountered an accident? Uther analyzed. Will an owl letter be sent 2 months later? Bernard didn't quite believe this possibility. In comparison, I think the things in the ruins are too precious, so your parents and their friends eventually had an internal conflict, and the things were finally obtained by your parents. Facing the different looks of the 4 people, Bernard continued his reasonable inference. Maybe your parents are not dead, so their friends set their sights on your grandmother and you, hoping to get the thing through you. Or maybe your parents are really dead, and their friends thought that since they have killed your parents, why not kill your grandmother and you together, and get the things your parents once had? What about the gains you have made in the past? It is also possible that your parents died, but their friends did not get the thing, so they thought that the thing is now in your hands, and pretended to be your parents to deceive you. Wait, the last one is impossible, right? Cologne couldn't help but refute. The bodies of Eugene's parents were sent by friends, right? Then why pretend to be his parents? The people who sent the bodies and the people who pretended to be Eugene's parents may not be the same group of friends. Bernard shook his head, then looked at Cologne. And when you say that, you also think that the other situations I mentioned are also reasonable, right? Cologne was silent. Looking at Eugene, whose face had lost its color, Adam comforted him. What Bernard said is indeed possible, but the possibilities are not limited to these. It's just that Adam couldn't think of other possibilities so quickly for a while. Not everyone can have a case database in their minds like Bernard can directly apply it. After speaking, Adam turned the letter over. There wasn't much on the other side of the letter. Eugene's grandmother said that she had contacted several friends and was waiting for people claiming to be Eugene's parents to come. If they were really Eugene's parents, Eugene's grandmother said that she would let them wait at home until Eugene came home for the summer vacation even if she broke their legs, and the family would meet before leaving. If not. In short, at the end of the letter, she once again warned Eugene to stay at Hogwarts and not go back during Christmas. Putting down the letter, Adam took out the sealed book and looked at Eugene. We are here now, and we can't find anything with these letters. We can only guess. Why don't I try to predict your parents? It's not clear whether Adam's prediction is accurate, but Eugene nodded. 10 claw cards were placed in order, and Adam turned over the first card. Double card. Adam looked at the claw card with confusion on his face. Double card. What does this mean? Adam had told Uther about his divination process before, and Uther whispered to Eugene beside him that the first claw card was a hint of the result. Knowing that Adam had successfully divined the danger Uther encountered last time, Eugene obviously took this divination seriously. So, what does this represent? Facing Eugene's question, Adam was silent for a moment. It's not clear yet, let's see what happens next. After saying that, Adam turned over the 3 claw cards in the middle row. Mirror card, illusion card, shadow card. Looking at these 3 claw cards, Adam frowned. At least now we can be sure that the person who wrote to you should not be your parents. Mirror images, illusions, shadows, are all false. Eugene took a deep breath in, then are they still alive? They are definitely still alive. Adam said firmly. What Eugene needed now was hope, and he didn't think the current deck was as dangerous as Uther's last divination result. Last time, Uther's deck had a lot of cards, confusing cards, and hidden cards, almost like a blood-red danger on top of his head. And Eugene's parents, at least for now, did not have any claw cards that indicated a bad direction. Eugene nodded, and Adam turned over the last claw card. The next target of the divination object no card. Adam's face suddenly became paler than Eugene's. Last time, he was thankful that there were no dead cards in the claw cards, but now he seems to have found a card that is no different from a dead card. No. Aren't you the Adam card? Why are you also in the claw cards? Adam clearly didn't put the no card and the love card in when he shuffled the cards. The no card floated up, and the back of the card returned to the appearance of the Adam card. At the same time, the no card on the card opened its eyes. Adam, there will be no such loopholes in claw card divination. It won't disappear just because you took away a certain card. At the same time, even if you convert all claw cards into Adam cards and mark the back of each Adam card, everyone's back will still become the same pattern during divination. So, what happened? Eugene first saw Adam's face, and then heard Adam's words. It was obvious that he didn't want this card to appear, and he couldn't help but feel uneasy. Adam looked at Eugene, and then couldn't help but look away in Eugene's eyes, not having the heart to explain the meaning of the no card. Eugene. My parents, are they? Calm down. Eugene, calm down first. Uther reached out and pressed Eugene's shoulder. How can I calm down? My parents are dead. They are not dead yet. The last card is a prediction of the future. Uther looked at Adam, and Adam nodded quickly. Yes. That's right. Although no card symbolizes nothingness, the last card is the future goal of the divination object. As long as we stop them before that. Adam couldn't say anything more. Not to mention that they don't even know where Eugene's parents are now. They are still in class. How can they stop Eugene's parents? Looking at the claw cards on the table, Eugene burst into tears. At this moment, Adam put away the claw cards on the table. I'll do divination again. Chapter 131. Adam, even if you divine twice, the result will not change. It may even get worse. Sibby couldn't help but persuade Adam. I want to divine how I can save Eugene's parents. Isn't this divination about the same thing? Xiao Ke couldn't help but complain. Indeed, but even if things get worse, it won't matter, right? Seeing Adam and the two cats communicating normally, everyone is no longer surprised. Uther, who can hear Xiao Ke and Sibby's real words, has long been accustomed to the fact that they can speak. Despite the persuasion of the two sealed beasts, Adam still intends to start the second divination. Adam, wait a minute. Sibby suddenly called Adam. I still want to try. No, what I want to say is, maybe you can ask Amen. What? Amen Fix, the Ravenclaw you asked me to pay attention to. Sibby jumped onto the table and squatted in front of Adam. When Adam is determined to do what he wants and is about to make things irreversible, bring him to me and I will wait for him in the library, that's what the guy said. Why have I never heard you say this? Xiao Ke looked at Sibby in surprise. They clearly agreed to share any news they found with each other. Sibby rolled his eyes secretly. You can't find out anything except the harassment gadfly and the crescent horn snorkel. Do you want to get my results for free? This is the information I worked hard to get with my body. But thinking back, Sibby still frowned, because he hadn't thought about it until he spoke. This thought, and this memory, seemed to have grown out of his mind out of thin air. The five people looked at each other, and finally Adam stood up. I'll go and take a look. It's just a trip to the library. If Amen is just being mysterious, there's still time for divination. When Adam found Amen, he was building a pyramid with tarot cards. Seeing Adam sitting down opposite him, Amen raised his hand slightly to signal him to wait, and at the same time, he quickly built the pyramid. Looking at the completed pyramid, Amen breathed a sigh of relief and looked at Adam. What do you see in this pile of cards? Adam looked at the tarot card pyramid, which was well made but not good enough, as if it would fall down with a gust of wind. Every card was facing up, with only one exception. Wheel of Fortune. Amen's eyes lit up, and he looked at the only card facing up in the pyramid. You are indeed a different person. Do you want to learn divination from me? Adam. You, Tosby, asked me to come here just to tell me this. Speaking of this, Adam stood up and was about to leave. No, no, no. Sit down first, why are you in such a hurry? Amen quickly reached out and grabbed Adam's sleeve. I want to tell you a rule of divination, any observation you make about the future will actually affect the future. Adam paused as he was about to leave and looked at Amen. What exactly do you want to say? Speak clearly. The past is something that cannot be changed and has already happened, the present is something that is being determined and is happening, and the future is something that is constantly changing and may happen. Amen is still being a riddler, saying something that sounds mysterious. When you see the future, what may happen becomes something that has already happened, and the constantly changing future becomes unchangeable. What are you doing? Adam suddenly reached out and took off Amen's monocle, and Amen couldn't help but be stunned. Nothing, I'm just helping you take off these glasses first. Adam wrapped the metal chain around the monocle and put it on the table, pushing it away, then reached out to touch Amen's face, and moved all the way back, and fixed the back of his head before Amen could react. Otherwise, the lens will break and pierce into your eyes, which will be very painful. Seeing that Adam had raised his fist as big as a sandbag, Amen quickly changed his words. Don't do divination, or something will definitely happen. What will happen? Anyway, it's something very scary, oh, I say. Let me go first, Madam Pants will be here soon. It's okay, let's go to an abandoned classroom and have a good chat. Will divination lead to the inevitable conclusion of the divination result in the future? Adam touched his chin and thought about this piece of information. Unexpectedly, Amen really has something. Why did I naturally think he was lying before? Never mind, let's solve the problem of Eugene's parents first before worrying about this. That's right, so the more skilled the fortune teller is, the less likely he will seek those extremely detailed results, but will divine a general direction to leave room for himself. Amen took a sip of the peanut soup. Humph, he would not be fooled by this method of giving a sweet date after a slap. But it should be said that this date is a bit sweet. Adam thought about it and gave up on using divination to find out how to save Eugene's parents, and instead planned to divine where Eugene's parents are now. But then he thought about it, when he divined information such as geographical location, he seemed to lack the ability to interpret the divination results. But Adam, who had not taken divination classes seriously because of the Clow cards, raised his eyes. Isn't there a ready-made fortune teller here? Divination of the location of Eugene's parents? What happened to his parents? After asking, Amen received Adam's look of keep making it up, and he immediately got angry. Who do you think I am? Divination is not omnipotent, okay? And my divination is not very effective, cough cough. The latter half of the sentence was a little vague, but after an awkward cough, he still said firmly. I can try. Left side of the mountain, right side of the water, above the tree, under the soil. Hearing the prophecy about Eugene's parents brought back by Adam, Cologne couldn't help but question. What the hell is this place? Is there really a place that is both on the tree and underground? Is that guy talking nonsense? It shouldn't be, Amen is not that kind of person. When it comes to life and death, Adam still believes in Amen's credibility. Maybe, there really is. Eugene's expression was a little subtle. Have you heard of the Hanging Gardens? What? You mean, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon? In fact, it should be the Assyrian dynasty. Adam's expression was subtle. But isn't the Hanging Garden a misunderstanding caused by mistranslation? In fact, it is supported by pillars. Adam was about to say that a garden floating in the air was simply a challenge to Newton's gravity, but think about it, he can open Newton's coffin with a floating spell, so he can only shut up and silently say awesome in his heart. The Hanging Gardens really exist, but now they have been buried deep underground. Eugene stood up and took out a well-preserved piece of letter paper from the bedside table. My parents didn't come back because they got the news of the ruins of the Hanging Gardens. Adam took the letter and looked at it, and his eyes couldn't help but slightly raised. Could it be that these spots on the letter paper were? Eugene's expressionless face slowly turned red as he met Adam's scrutinizing gaze and noticed the abnormality on the letter paper. After discovering that Eugene's body was even shaking with embarrassment, Adam quickly returned his attention to the letter paper. Chapter 132. After a long while, Adam put down the letter. So that's it. The Hanging Gardens, which were built by ancient wizards, are considered a wonder in the wizard world. The treasures that may exist in them attract the curiosity and covetousness of countless people. As professionals, Eugene's parents hurriedly abandoned their children who they hadn't seen for more than 10 years and rushed over after confirming that the ruins of the Hanging Gardens were really discovered. It can be regarded as, well, it's understandable, but Adam himself would definitely not forgive it. In any case, the ruins of the Hanging Gardens, the original goal of Eugene's parents, does meet the results of Amen's divination. So, your parents are probably still in the ruins now. Adam made a judgment. Cologne frowned and said. That's not right. Didn't Eugene's grandmother confirm the identity of the body before? Maybe she just checked the two bodies briefly and buried them in a hurry. Adam narrowed his eyes. Professor Snape once told me that when a person drinks a lot of polyjuice potion before dying, the effect will last for a while even after his death. Bernard's eyes lit up, and then he couldn't help sighing. Sure enough, he really missed too many knowledge points by only learning the content of the textbook. This is the truly useful knowledge. But the problem now is, even if we know where Eugene's parents are, what can we do? Uther shook his head. We can't ask the professors for leave and say we are going to the ruins of the Sky Garden. Don't forget the contract we signed before returning in the first year. The Ministry of Magic is watching us. Bernard sighed. Eugene curled up on the sofa with his legs hugged, biting his lips. I'll go. Adam stood up. You? Are you sure your parents will ask for leave for you? What's the reason? No need to ask for leave. Adam walked to the dressing mirror in the dormitory, stretched out his hand to the mirror, until he reached into the mirror, and then pulled. And Adam was pulled out of the mirror by Adam. The other 4 people in the dormitory. That is. Cologne couldn't even speak clearly. Mirror, I'll trouble you to take my class from now on. Just don't do anything in class. I'll come back to get the homework in the evening. Okay. Adam called Mirror nodded and made the same sound as Adam. Seeing this, Uther hurriedly said. Then we'll go with you. You can help us change. If you don't go to class, I'm afraid your final grades will be very bad. Is it time to worry about grades now? Before everyone could say anything, Adam continued. Trace cannot track the magic of the Clow cards, but it can track the magic you use. I also have a method that Trace cannot track. I will go with you. Uther said immediately. But what if you are tracked by those people? Adam looked at Uther, and his words made Uther collapse back on the sofa like a deflated balloon. Yes, even the previous few times he went to Hogsmeade Village, it was because Hogsmeade Village was now under close surveillance by the Ministry of Magic and Dementors. If Uther went to a lawless place like the ruins of the Sky Gardens, he might cause more trouble. Although I don't know how your parents are doing now. Walking to Eugene, Adam put his hand on his shoulder, looked into his eyes and said. I will do my best to save them, leave it to me. Woo, Adam. Before leaving, Adam confirmed the current information again. This is a photo of my parents. Eugene's eyes flashed with disappointment. Although it was taken more than 10 years ago, it should still be useful. As for the location of the ruins of the Hanging Gardens, you can ask my grandmother at my house. Well, I will also try to find other channels. For example, Mundungus, Nocturne Alley, and the contact book left by Nicholas Flamel. If you can't find it, you can ask my mother. The appearance of the ruins of the Hanging Gardens is not a trivial matter. Maybe she will have some news. Uther reminded. He knew that Adam could travel between Egypt and Britain in an instant, so he was not afraid that this method would take time. Okay. Adam nodded. This was indeed faster and more likely to get news. Adam, be careful on the road. Cologne was about to say something when he suddenly heard Bernard's voice from behind. Make way. Make way. Cologne turned around. Wow. Bernard, you got it, what is this? Cologne quickly made way, and saw Bernard struggling to drag out a rectangular box from under the bed, open the combination lock on the box, and reveal the gun barrel inside. Hey! Bernard wiped the sweat from his head and pointed at the things in the box. Schmull, a high-end product obtained when the bear disintegrated. Take it with you, although it only has 1 round, but this thing is definitely more useful in the underground ruins than Avada. Schmull. This term went around in Adam's mind for a few times, but he couldn't remember what it was. Is this an RPG? Almost. Bernard scratched his head, not expecting Adam to have never heard of this weapon. Do you know about the fuel air bomb? Yes, that's too good to be true. What is that? Uther looked at Adam with some doubts, and Adam said with a complicated expression. Something that can turn the whole Hogwarts into a mushroom. Then, Adam looked at Bernard. How do you have such a thing? I talked about Hogwarts with my uncle before. Don't get me wrong, I told it as a fairy tale. What if I encountered a more than 10-foot-long snake in the castle like the protagonist of the story? I don't know magic, and guns can't deal with such monsters. He said that this can definitely kill the snake, so I asked for one to die together with me. That can indeed kill the basilisk, but it is indeed a matter of mutual destruction. You two are really daring to ask for it and the other dares to give it to you. Even though he had bought some good stuff from Bernard's uncle, Adam was still shocked by his ability. He could even get a fuel air bomb. It seems that his previous order was too conservative. The fuel air bomb is also called a sub-nuclear weapon. It mainly relies on the high temperature and high pressure generated after the explosion to kill the target. In a confined space, the high temperature lasts longer, the detonation wave reflects and overlaps between the walls, and the overpressure value is far higher than that in an open space. In the underground ruins, the lethality of the West and nuclear weapons is not much different. No carbon-based creature's body can withstand this level of attack. It is indeed better than Avada. Although using this thing may mean taking Eugene's parents away, who can refuse a fuel air bomb? Adam put away the box and silently used the double card to copy a few boxes. He planned to return it to Bernard after he came back and said that he didn't use it. Wait. Where did Bernard take this thing out before? Adam looked at Bernard's bed and couldn't help saying. What else did you put under the bed? There are no nuclear warheads, right? Bernard blushed slightly. Actually, it's nothing, just some small things for self-defense. Chapter 133. I've already said there aren't many. Bernard said helplessly as he watched Adam drag out the boxes under his bed and open them one by one. There weren't many indeed, just a Maxim and replacement parts, 8 boxes of bullets, half a box of white phosphorus grenades and half a box of stun grenades. I didn't expect you to bring non-lethal weapons. Adam took out a stun grenade and tossed it in his hand. After all, in school, if possible, Don't kill people for the time being. Bernard pulled out a book from under his pillow. I've been studying wizard lore recently, and I think there are many loopholes, cough. There are many places that can be flexible, so I won't be afraid then. Why don't you tell me clearly what you're not afraid of then? Adam's expression was a little subtle, but it wasn't a bad thing for Bernard to study wizard law. By then, he could rely on himself to avoid going to Azkaban, and it would save him, cough, Voldemort would save people. Based on Adam's understanding of Bernard, although this guy can be tortured and handcuffed, he is still a good person. These means are at most used for self-defense. There is no need to worry about him doing bad things. Let him be. To be honest, Adam can actually understand the feeling of lack of security after being a muggle for so many years and suddenly coming to the wizarding world. Anyway, after checking that there are no other dangerous items in Bernard's arsenal that can blow up the entire dormitory, Adam did not say anything except copying some for himself. I'm leaving. After the voice fell, Adam disappeared on the spot. Everyone looked at the remaining Adam in the dormitory and hesitated for a while, not knowing what to say. Just treat me as Adam these days. Adam, disguised as the mirror card, showed a gentle smile, which immediately scared the four people. No, you, still don't show such a scary expression. Every time Adam comes up with a little trick, he will show such a smile. Mirror? Is the world changing too fast? Has the smile become an expression of terror? On the other side, Adam went directly to Egypt to help Uther visit his relatives and see what the situation is like here. As soon as he landed, Adam was shocked by the ruins in front of him. His destination was Uther's house. Fortunately, Adam saw Tuya later. She was angrily saying something to the people around her at the edge of the ruins. After waiting for a while, Adam found an opportunity. Mrs. Tuya. Tuya's eyes became sharp in an instant, and a silent spell was blasted in the direction of the voice. The raging fire devoured the gravel, and Adam couldn't help but twitch his eyes. Although the way to judge the authenticity was agreed before, I couldn't help but want to praise Aunt Tuya for being a heroine and decisive. It's really you, Adam. Seeing the barrier that remained unshakable under the burning of the fiend fire, Tuya waved her wand to put away the fiend fire, and frowned in confusion. Shouldn't Hogwarts still be in class now? Why are you here? I want to ask, Auntie, do you have any news about the Hanging Gardens? Besides. Adam glanced at the ruins not far away. What is this? As you can see, it was attacked. Tuya glanced at the ruins and frowned. It's just a desperate move. Don't worry, it will be solved soon. Don't tell Uther. Okay. Adam agreed readily, and as for not telling Uther. He agreed, but little Cosby and Jing didn't agree. The Hanging Gardens. The database does have records about this legendary miracle, but I think you don't want that, but the most recent one. I seem to have some impression, come with me. Tuya walked a few steps, turned around and found that Adam was gone. Auntie, just go ahead. I'll follow you. Tuya was a little surprised at Adam's ability to disillusion, but she still took Adam all the way to the office of the Minister of Magic. After closing the door, Tuya looked at Adam with a complicated look. She had prepared an excuse to trigger the alarm, but Adam really came here with her unimpeded after he became invisible. Adam also has the authority to travel freely in the Ministry of Magic? Without receiving Tuya's eyes, Adam waited for a while and got the result. Tuya really has information about the appearance of the ruins of the Hanging Gardens. Judging from the location, the ruins of the Hanging Gardens are in today's Iraq, and are now surrounded by official and private forces from various countries. Even though the Egyptian Ministry of Magic can't spare any hands, it still sent a team to observe the situation. What is interesting is that according to the news from 3 days ago, the treasures in the ruins of the Sky Gardens have not been taken by anyone yet. To be precise, no one has come out of the people who have entered the ruins of the Sky Gardens yet. This is interesting. No one has come out yet. Why has someone already targeted Eugene's family? Anyway, at least the location information of the ruins was obtained. Adam thanked him and disappeared directly on the spot. Tuya looked at the place where Adam disappeared, with some regret in her eyes. She wanted to ask Adam about Uther's recent situation. It seems that Adam is quite busy now. I hope that Uther, the brat, will not cause any trouble. The location of the ruins of the Sky Gardens is not close to any place Adam has been to. Fortunately, Adam has the flying card and the driving card. Adam would like to call the combination of the two the youth version of the Speed Force. If there is no shield to protect Adam, he will even be torn apart by the air around him. On the fourth day of the journey, Adam supported the shield and sat sideways on the dark staff with its wings spread out, flying while controlling the shorthand quill to write the homework due on Monday. Suddenly, a group of tents appeared at the end of Adam's sight, and Adam's eyes fell on the flag above one of the tents. Magical Congress of the United States. In the center of the capital M is a magic wand, which is the flag of the Magical Congress of the United States. Adam couldn't help but complain about how the American military in the wizarding world is everywhere. While complaining, Adam had already approached the group of tents. With a glance, he saw that there were quite a few forces in this area. In addition, there were many small tents without flags. I don't know if they belonged to private forces or something else, but Adam didn't have time to care about these now. Finding Eugene's parents was the first priority. To the left of the mountain, to the right of the water. As far as the eye can see, there is water, but no mountain, not even a small earthen slope. According to the news from the Egyptian Ministry of Magic before, no one who entered the ruins has come out yet, obviously. Is it really inside the ruins? In the center of the tent group, there was a dark hole, and dozens of ropes hung from the hole, extending all the way to the seemingly bottomless hole. Wizards use ropes to descend. Adam landed at the entrance of the cave, took out a candy and threw it forward. The parabola drawn by the candy stopped abruptly above the entrance of the cave, and it fell directly downward instead. Gravity magic? The magic around him did not flow irregularly like other places. Adam immediately thought of the Hanging Gardens, the miracle that floated in the air and never fell to the ground in the legend of the wizard world. Suspension and gravity, plus this location, no wonder everyone asserted that this relic was the former Hanging Gardens. It's just hard to imagine that the magic of the Hanging Gardens is still running today. Is someone still controlling it, or is the Hanging Gardens actually some kind of alchemical creation like the Goblet fairy fire? Thinking of this, Adam grew wings behind his back, and he flapped them lightly and flew into the cave. Chapter 134. The depth of this big hole was beyond Adam's expectation. At first, Adam flew down little by little. The gravity magic around him naturally did not break through the protection of the shield, and then he let himself fall freely. Anyway, he had a shield, so he would not die. After experiencing the thrill of bungee jumping without a rope while falling rapidly, Adam couldn't help but think about bringing his good brothers to try it next time after his heartbeat accelerated. Unfortunately, no one he knew was afraid of heights. Just when Adam was thinking about bad things, he splashed into the water, and broke through the water layer all the way to the bottom of the water before stopping. Adam stepped into the water after coming to his senses, and the huge reaction force brought by the force card pushed Adam directly out of the water. I don't know what happened. It was still daytime, and there was no cover on this big hole. The light was getting darker and darker from the hole. Now it was pitch dark. Spreading his wings in the air and stopping his body, Adam waved his hand to sprinkle a fluorescent light, and then looked around. There was a large lake at his feet, which seemed to be smaller than the hole above. Several ropes were hanging from the top to the shore. So coming down from the hole was the official way to enter? Adam noticed that there seemed to be a few fewer ropes than at the hole above, and the 3 ropes on the ground seemed to indicate the fate of the missing ropes. In places like underground ruins, safety measures are always easy to be damaged, right? However, although there were traces of people falling around the broken ropes, there were only some broken flesh and blood, but no main body bones left, but there was a bloodstain extending towards the central lake. Adam looked at the lake at his feet along the bloodstain, and the lake seemed to be lit up with red lights. Adam had an inexplicable illusion that he was meeting a pair of eyes. After a few seconds of silence, the water surface suddenly broke open, and a huge mouth like an abyss bit towards Adam in mid-air. Tisk, why is this scene so familiar? I seem to have seen it somewhere. Each of the 2 fangs sticking out of the mouth is more than 3 meters long. Under the dim light of the sign, you can even see the blood and a few pieces of cloth on the fangs. This scene, which is enough to scare most people, really makes Adam's heart beat faster. I remember it. You must be more courageous. Don't learn from that damn Amit. You must be flesh and blood. With a bit of excitement in his words, Adam waved the dark staff, and a cold current fell from the sky and poured on the monster that jumped out of the water. Most of the body that jumped out of the water was completely frozen, along with the lake surface below. Adam flew closer and saw the original appearance of the giant beast. Hey? I seem to have seen you in a documentary. After some recollection, Adam was a little dumbfounded. This silver body, the red beard on the top of the head, the luminous organs on the body, the familiar long body. Although it is a little bigger, this guy is really not an oarfish? He thought it would be some new magical animal, food, material. Oh, the ball dodgers are also ordinary animals in the cognition of muggles, so it's okay. However, in his memory, the oarfish is not a freshwater animal. Could it be that the lake under his feet is connected to the sea? Using the small card to put the frozen oarfish into the bag, Adam looked at the lake water, but he didn't taste it to see whether it was salty or fresh. He caught an enlarged version of the oarfish, and there were traces of predation in its mouth, but this guy was obviously not the guy who caught the corpse into the lake. Its body structure destined it to be unable to do such a difficult predation method. In other words, there is a high probability that there are still surprises, food, materials, in the lake. It's a pity that Adam still has work to do, so he can only land on the shore with some regret and search for traces of people walking. This place is very empty. There are no passages in all directions, but a completely unobstructed space. It is like an underground world, which greatly increases the difficulty of Adam's search. This won't work, at least we need to confirm the direction. Hey! As soon as the get out of class was over, Amen saw Adam blocking him at the end of the corridor from a distance. Thinking that it was not good, Amen planned to run away, but Adam obviously would not give him a chance to run. Come on, let me ask you something. Hugging Amen's shoulders enthusiastically, Adam nodded to Amen's roommate. Can I borrow Amen? No problem, Amen, I'll go back to the dormitory first. The roommate, who was often fed some sweets by Adam, gave a friendly smile, and did not react to Amen's eye hints, perhaps because he did not see it. Brother! Even if I am useful, I won't use it like this, right? How many times has this happened? Being taken to the abandoned classroom, Amen was a little upset. Can't run away. Can't run away at all. The power of hermit and magician are ineffective against him. As for fighting, Amen, who opened chariot and got a black eye, and opened power and got another black eye, said he might as well run. Originally, he thought it would be interesting to find someone who could greatly influence his fate, but now he just wants to go back to the time when he first became interested in Adam and catch him and beat him up. Do you like it? If you don't like it, don't go and kill yourself. Didn't you take the initiative to come to me at that time? Adam raised his eyebrows. I just want to ask in which direction Eugene's parents are, it's not an excessive request. Hearing Adam's request, Amen breathed a sigh of relief. So that's it. Didn't I do divination for you before? The left side of the mountain, the right side of the water. Adam recalled the divination result and couldn't help frowning. That place is a lake, and there is a vast space in all directions. How to distinguish left and right? You might as well say east, west, south and north. Brother! Can the divination result be customized? The result I got is already very good, not even a long poem or a riddle. Okay, I'll look for it again. Adam let go of Amen, and just when Amen breathed a sigh of relief, he turned his head again. Don't hide from me these days, I might come back to find you. After that, he disappeared on the spot with Amen's eyes twitching. Amen noticed that there was an extra bag on the table beside him. He opened it and saw that it was full of gold galleons. Hat, you underestimate me. Am I the kind of person who is greedy for money? Amen grabbed a handful of gold galleons and sprinkled them, and then found that there seemed to be something else under the bag. He swept the gold galleons aside and saw that it was a stack of rectangular paper coupons, shining with a similar light to gold galleons, and it said, Huanmeng Dessert Workshop Product Exchange Coupon? Hat, why didn't you take this thing out earlier? Amen put the exchange coupon into his pocket and picked up the bag of gold galleons. Chapter 135. Back above the big lake in the underground ruins, Adam released light spots to spread in all directions. Left side of the mountain, right side of the water, no matter which direction is left or right, it is in the middle of the mountain and the water, right? The water is at your feet, so as long as you find the mountain. The light spots scattered, but Adam didn't see any mountains until the light spots disappeared at the end of his sight. Is the light card not bright enough? There is nothing I can do about it. Adam took out a clow card, and the woman on the card, wearing a crown and elegant clothes, was holding the sun in one hand and the clouds in the other. Unseal, hey! Just as Adam was about to unseal the light card and completely illuminate the underground world, he heard a noise from afar and turned to use the magic of the illusion card to hide himself. Not long after, two figures holding lanterns walked out of the darkness. The weak light of the lanterns was not even as good as the light spots created by the light card, and could only illuminate the distance of less than 2 steps around. After looking around, the two lowered their voices and said to each other, "Are you sure that the light just now came from here?" "I'm sure. Although I don't know which faction the two are from, at least they speak English, which is good news." After walking a few more steps, one of them didn't want to go forward anymore. "Should we continue to move forward? Even if someone comes down from above, what can we do?" He couldn't help but take a few steps back. "Anyway, even if someone comes down, it's just a few more people trapped here. Maybe that person has been eaten by the kraken, or something else. God knows what monsters are in that lake." Adam's eyes lit up while hiding kraken. "This thing is also called the kraken, a specialty of the Norwegian Sea. I don't know why it appeared here. In the previous life, the prototype of this thing was probably the giant squid, but the kraken in this world is indeed a magical animal, with the appearance of a giant octopus tens of meters long. If this thing dragged the body of the wizard who fell down before into the lake, it is very likely, but Adam is more concerned about this. After trying the giant squid, Adam thinks that the kraken is still charming. Speaking of which, this lake can actually hold so many delicacies. Oh no, it is a giant marine creature. The space below should be much larger than it looks, and it should be connected to the ocean. Could it be that he found all blue? After Eugene's parents are rescued, he must explore this place carefully. In this moment, the man has convinced his companions it is obvious that the other party does not want to get close to the lake. Wizards do occupy an absolute dominant position in the ecological niche of the magic world, but that is not only because of the endless spells of wizards, but also based on the difference in numbers. Simply put, magical animals stronger than wizards cannot be born by wizards, and magical animals that can be born by wizards are not as strong as wizards. Now, there were only a few wizards in this underground ruins, and they were not on the same page. It was not certain that the two of them could deal with a kraken alone. Besides, as his companion said, who knows what else is in this lake? That kraken couldn't have grown so big by drinking water, right? The two retreated a long way before they raised their voices and shouted a few times symbolically. "Is anyone there? Is it the reinforcements that just came down? Or is it a private expedition team that came down secretly? Did you release the light just now? No matter who you are, if you are still alive, please answer. If you try, you will find that we can't go up now. We must unite to have a chance to escape." After shouting a few times, there was no response. The two sighed and prepared to leave. As a result, when they turned around, they saw an old man with white beard and hair, wearing a white robe and leaning on a white cane, looking at them quietly. A sharp exclamation just came out of the throat, and the owner of the throat covered it with his hand. The wizard who had just persuaded the other person to leave covered his mouth with one hand and his chest with the other hand. The lantern in his hand fell to the ground, and he looked like he was almost scared to death. The other wizard was also very frightened, but he was not slow to pull out the wand. "Armor, protect yourself. When in doubt, put on the shield first." Yes, he looks experienced, and there is a clear difference from the one next to him. "The old man is Adam after the transformation," he slowly said. "Don't be afraid, didn't you ask me to come here just now?" The gentle voice was like a gurgling stream, calming the fear in the hearts of the two people. The two looked at the deep and bright eyes and unconsciously followed each other's words and thought. "Come. We asked you. Are you the one who released the light ball just now?" Adam didn't say anything, and paused the dark stick in his hand. In the eyes of the two, the tip of the white stick in the old man's hand lit up with a familiar light. "Wait, such a bright light can't be emitted here." Before the more timid wizard finished speaking, the sound of waves rolling came from afar. Under the illumination of the fluorescent light, the two wizards turned pale. "Run!" There was no need to lower their voices at this time. The two wizards ran away. After running for a while, they remembered that there was still someone there, and hurriedly turned back to look. It can only be said that there is a little conscience, but not much. Fortunately, the two turned around and saw the white-bearded old man following them closely. Seeing them turn around, he smiled at them, looking at ease. After running for a few minutes, the three stopped. "You, physical strength, ha, ha, really good." Panting, the two wizards looked at Adam in disbelief, whose breathing was not disordered. But think about it, being able to climb down such a long rope with bare hands, the physical strength must not be too bad. Unlike them, who sit in the office most of the time, if it weren't for their companions' help, they would have fallen halfway. I usually pay attention to exercise. Adam smiled and looked at the two people. I haven't asked your names yet. My name is Zora. Yahweh, what about you? These two names are fake and even a little perfunctory. Uller and Gandalf. The two wizards looked at each other. This old man was quite honest. But they still had to ask what they should ask. So, Mr. Gandalf, can I ask about your origins? We have no ill intentions. As we said before, you should have known that there is anti-apparition magic here, and even the door key cannot be used. Yahweh sighed and said. Now we who are still alive have reached a temporary agreement. Regardless of other things, let's get out first. Most of the first batch of people who came down were from the Ministry of Magic of various countries. They were just workers. The interests they fought for would not be in their hands in the end. It was not worth it to sacrifice their lives for work. As for those private expedition teams, they knew better that saving their lives was the most important thing, otherwise they would not live to explore the ruins of the Sky Gardens. This news was only given to the most experienced expedition teams. Chapter 136. I am a scholar. Phantom card and sound card, with love card, Adam would like to call it a meeting. Gandalf's words were so convincing. In order to let the other party understand the current situation and join them, the two told Gandalf all the information they knew. Including the areas they have explored, what they encountered along the way, and their current base. Did you encounter a mountain range? Adam's eyes lit up. In which direction? Over there. Zora pointed in a direction, then hesitated. But because the mountain range looks too tall, we are worried that there is danger inside, so we didn't continue to explore forward. Thank you, I plan to go there to take a look, do you want to join? After hearing the news, Adam planned to set off directly. Okay. The two agreed without thinking, but after walking with Gandalf for a long time, they suddenly came to their senses. It seemed that they were planning to get each other to cooperate just now. The two looked at each other, then at Gandalf. Forget it, it's been so long and there's no clue anyway, why not follow this scholar, maybe he can find a way out? There are plants here, so we can turn up the lights. The two saw plants starting to appear on the roadside, took out the lantern that had been extinguished when they escaped just now and relit it. After some adjustments, the light of the lantern became much brighter than before. It can probably illuminate the surrounding area for about 10 steps, which is slightly better than the fluorescent flash. Adam looked at the magic prop with some disdain, and used the magic of the light board to create dozens of light balls. After extinguishing the lantern, the two put it away as if nothing had happened, secretly cursing the logistics department in their hearts. To avoid embarrassment, Zora explained. There are some flying insects chasing light in the area around the lake just now. It's not clear what kind of animal it is, but it is highly poisonous, so we almost never light the lights, and even if we do, they won't be too bright. Adam looked back thoughtfully behind him, maybe Professor Scamander would also be interested in this place? Yahweh then said. But those flying insects won't come to the area with plants. Look. Adam followed the direction of Yahweh's finger and saw clumps of weed-like plants on the ground. There was a slender stem in the middle of each clump, and a red fruit on the top of the stem. This fruit can be eaten, and it's everywhere in this area. We survived by eating this fruit. Yahweh picked one and threw it into his mouth, then his facial features tightened. Except that it's a little sour, there's no disadvantage. Thank you. Gandalf picked a fruit, twisted it in his hand, and then threw it into his mouth. Putting the fruit in the bag, Adam and the two continued to move forward. Don't eat this thing randomly, wait for me to go back and study it. Growing in a place without light is nothing, many magical plants can do it, such as the Devil's Snare, but the growth location is separated from the water source by a significant distance. Either the plant has a problem, or the water has a problem. Combined with the fact that those flying insects won't fly here, it's obvious that there's something wrong with the plant. In the bag, Sibi and Zyok used their paw pads to pick at the fruit, feeling the magic inside, and looked serious. Okay. Adam nodded secretly. Continuing forward, the variety of plants obviously increased, and at the same time, there was light around. A kind of plant with fluorescent sticks began to appear around, which looked a bit like calamus when it wasn't glowing. Very beautiful, right? Zora and Yahweh smiled and stretched out their hands to pinch the glowing stick-like structure. Dots of light sprayed out from the end, like pollen. Adam opened the shield to block all the pollen outside. Even if it is a magical animal, it conforms to certain evolutionary laws. Since this plant wants to glow, it must have a purpose for glowing. Is it to attract other things to spread pollen for it, or to attract food? It's better to be careful. Adam kindly reminded him. He felt that with the two people's attitude of getting physical at everything they saw, they seemed to be unable to lead him for too long. Before finding Eugene's parents, he was still counting on them to explore the way for him. It's okay, we have been here before, and there will be no danger in this area all the way to the mountains. Zora waved her hand. Some explorers believe that these plants are ornamental and edible varieties specially cultivated by the wizards who built the sky gardens. There are more ahead. This guess makes some sense. Adam sighed. He had asked the two people before, the two did not know Eugene's parents. These people did not unite as soon as they arrived at the underground ruins. At the beginning, they also fought openly and secretly, but after more than a month of survival in the wilderness of the ruins, they finally met at the base closest to the entrance and reached a consensus. At this time, compared with the initial entry into the ruins, it was unknown how many people had been lost. Eugene's parents should have been killed in this process. Is there a tree in front? On the left side of the mountain, on the right side of the water, above the tree, under the soil. There are clues to the mountain and the water now. Although it is not clear whether it is this mountain and this water, it would be better if there are trees. Trees, there should be. Yahweh recalled. The mountain range is bare, without any grass or trees, but we saw bird droppings on the road. There should be trees nearby for them to build nests. But we didn't see them on the road before. Birds don't necessarily have to build nests on trees. Having said that, Adam still planned to follow and take a look. Please lead the way. Adam, how is it? Although he knew that Adam would always come back on time, Eugene still waited on the sofa early. When he saw Adam appear, he hurried to ask. I found the news of the mountain range, but it has not yet arrived. It is a waste of time to see the mountain, not to mention that Adam can't see it now, he just heard about it. But don't worry, I found that if there is danger in the ruins, it is very dangerous. According to the people I met, all the dangers they encountered will quickly kill people, such as monsters in the lake, or poisonous flying insects and the like. Adam comforted Eugene. During the divination before, your parents are obviously still alive, so nothing will happen for a while. Anyway, it is a consolation, Eugene nodded. By the way, where is the mirror? Adam looked around, why is the mirror not here today? Chapter 137. Everyone's expression was mixed with a hint of subtlety. Oh no, it's her. Uther, who already knew Jing's true identity, at least she looked like a girl, hesitated for a moment before speaking. I'm dating you. Hey. For a moment, Adam felt that he couldn't understand English. This date, shouldn't be that date, right? Jing doesn't seem to be very good at rejecting others. Bernard struggled with the wording and explained. Before, you would directly reject anyone who confessed to you, but Jing's rejection was too tactful, so those guys thought that Adam's attitude had loosened, so they pursued him relentlessly, such as sending love letters, chocolates, etc. What's funny is that the chocolates sent were bought from Adam's store. Faced with such a gift with obvious direction, Jing would politely refuse, but then those people turned to ask Adam out to play, such as the library, the greenhouse, Mrs. Putafoot's tea house, etc. Of course, these were not openly called dates, and Jing obviously did not understand the real intention behind this, and basically agreed to it in the spirit of being a friendly classmate. So Jing's schedule is a bit full now, and he didn't even have time to come back to hand over to Adam today. Now Jing is studying in the library with a certain Ravenclaw eagle in front of Adam's face. Why didn't you tell me before? Didn't you see you were busy before? Cologne would never say that they were actually a little happy eating melons and forgot for a moment. And Jing doesn't know anything, going to the library is really reading books, going to the greenhouse is really taking care of plants, and going to the tea house is really drinking tea and chatting. There won't be any problems. As a result, the next day after Cologne said this, Professor Dumbledore blocked them on their way out of class. When Adam comes back, please tell him to come to my office tomorrow afternoon. Professor Dumbledore left after saying that, leaving the four people in a cloud staring at each other. This. After returning to the dormitory, Cologne looked at his glasses. How did Professor Dumbledore see that? After all, that's Dumbledore. Uther sighed. Thanks to Grindelwald's feat of starting a war in the Ministry of Magic around the world, Dumbledore was quite famous even in Egypt. Looking at Eugene, who was worried, Uther comforted him. It's okay, trust Adam, he will solve the problem. Don't worry, I will solve it. Back in the dormitory, Adam looked normal after hearing about Professor Dumbledore looking for him. If Professor Dumbledore doesn't agree, don't worry. Looking at Adam's firm eyes, Eugene nodded, and his heart unconsciously settled down. Uther couldn't help but sigh at this scene. Adam was still as reliable and reassuring as ever. Well, at least in such a matter of life and death. On the way to the principal's office the next afternoon, Adam's mood was not bad. Professor Dumbledore would not mind his absence from class to save people, and no one else knew about it, judging from the fact that he tolerated Professor Quirrell and Professor Lockhart's mischief at Hogwarts. Seeing Adam coming, the gargoyles at the door made way for Adam. Oh! This is the first time I can enter the principal's office without a password. Standing on the spiral staircase that moved upward like an escalator, Adam soon saw the situation in the principal's office. In addition to the principal, Professor Dumbledore, there was also Professor Lupin. It seemed that he and Professor Dumbledore were drinking mead before, and there were some half-eaten desserts on the table. Adam couldn't help but be stunned when he saw him. Why was he here? Ah, Adam, you're finally here. Seeing Adam coming, Professor Dumbledore said with a smile. Professor Lupin and I were just praising your craftsmanship in making desserts. It's more delicious than the candies in Honeyduke's candy shop. Professor Lupin added. Thank you for the compliment. In fact, I have bought Honeyduke's candy shop from Ambrosio. It will reopen as Dream Dessert Workshop in the near future. Hearing Adam's words, Professor Dumbledore, who knew whose legacy he inherited, was not too surprised, but Professor Lupin almost choked on the candy in his mouth. A third-year student bought Honeyduke's candy shop? Did he hear any horror stories just now? So, Professor Dumbledore, what do you want to see me for, is it something? In fact, it was Professor Lupin who wanted to find you. Professor Dumbledore winked at Adam. Professor Lupin is very curious about who makes the wolfsbane potion he drinks every month, and wants to talk to him. Adam suddenly realized it, and he said that he seemed to have forgotten something. Sorry, I haven't started brewing the wolfsbane potion for next month, I can do it tomorrow. No. No need. The nausea that surged from the depths of the soul soothed the surprise that the third-year students were able to brew the wolfsbane potion. Professor Lupin stopped Adam from continuing to say with a pale face. I'm already planning to contact Professor Slughorn. After speaking, Professor Lupin held back, but still couldn't help but speak. Speaking of which, there is a question I want to ask you for a long time, why is the taste of the wolfsbane potion you brewed for me, so, vomit special? Hey? Is Professor Lupin not used to drinking it? Because the wolfsbane potion itself doesn't taste very good, I specially adjusted the flavor. Adam blinked innocently. These wonderful flavors are sometimes very popular. For example, Professor Dumbledore likes the taste of bean juice very much. It is a very authentic taste. Professor Dumbledore? I'm not. I didn't. Don't talk nonsense. Professor Dumbledore was about to speak when he saw a stack of golden paper coupons quietly appearing on the golden plate in front of him. It seemed to have Dream written on it. He took the paper coupons on the table at a speed that was not consistent with his age. When Professor Lupin turned his head to look at him in confusion, Professor Dumbledore nodded seriously. Ah, yes, the taste is good, very authentic. But he didn't have the same attitude as before when he helped Lupin find someone to come and question him. Ugh! Recalling that taste, and the amount that Adam gave him, Professor Lupin couldn't help but cover his mouth. Well, the world is so big that nothing is impossible. Remembering that Professor Dumbledore loved to eat cockroaches before, and now he loves to drink that bean vomit juice, it's not completely impossible. Professor Lupin doesn't like those flavors? How about stinky tofu? How about durian? The wolfsbane potion is a bit thick, and the texture is a bit like yogurt. If it's made into durian flavor, it must be very exciting. Forget it. Professor Lupin refused categorically, and then thought about it, still a little unwilling to give up. Isn't there a more normal flavor? Even the original flavor is fine. Although Hogwarts paid Adam a premium, the money charged to Professor Lupin was discounted. Board of Directors, MMP. If possible, Professor Lupin would certainly prefer to buy it at Hogwarts, rather than using the money he earned as a professor to entrust Professor Slughorn with a high price. If he hadn't been unable to swallow the lotus heart stewed with Coptis and Wolfsbane potion this month, who would be so stingy with their own money? Chapter 138. Next, Adam and Professor Lupin had a friendly discussion about the flavor of the Wolfsbane potion. Adam promised that the flavor of the Wolfsbane potion would be the flavor of the goods in his store, and Professor Lupin left with satisfaction. Well, I hope Professor Lupin will like the pure dark chocolate-flavored Wolfsbane potion next month. Well, let's get down to business, Adam. Professor Dumbledore looked at Adam with a kind look. Can you tell me where you have been all this time? The ruins of the Hanging Gardens, Professor. I'm sorry I haven't been in school these days, but Eugene's parents are trapped there, and no one he knows can help him except me. After Adam finished speaking, he looked at Professor Dumbledore. Perhaps, Professor, you know some news about the ruins of the Hanging Gardens. Professor Dumbledore frowned. First of all, I'm glad you are willing to tell me the truth, but I haven't received any news about the Hanging Gardens, and I can't help you. Adam was stunned. How could it be? I clearly saw the flag of the British Ministry of Magic around there. Ah. It seems that some people don't want me to know about the ruins. News. Professor Dumbledore narrowed his eyes slightly, his eyes flickered for a while, and then looked at Adam. What is the current situation there? To put it bluntly, it's terrible, it can't be worse. The entrance to the ruins is a large hole with a diameter of more than 100 meters, which is anti-apparition and anti-portkayat, and there are all kinds of dangerous creatures and mechanisms. Adam shook his head and answered truthfully. The first advance team, composed of magic ministries and private expedition teams from various countries, has been trapped inside for at least a month. Now they seem to have given up exploring and united to find a way to leave first. It sounds really bad. Then how did you come back? Professor Dumbledore couldn't help but be a little surprised that Adam had already found out so much information. And from what he said, he had already entered the ruins? Facing Professor Dumbledore's question, Adam looked at Fawkes. In addition to apparition and portkeys, there are many other ways to travel through space in this world, such as Fawkes. There is no magic in this world that can stop an immortal bird that wants to leave, right? Fawkes raised his head proudly and uttered a series of loud and high-pitched chirps like fairy music. Professor Dumbledore couldn't help shrinking his facial features because he was sour. The last time he heard Fawkes's cry was when he signed a contract with Fawkes for the first time when he was young. It's really a big bird that can't be kept. But it's okay, he will definitely not have descendants, and his brother's only descendant was also in that year, and his sister. Alas, the Dumbledore family has no descendants, and it's a good thing that Fawkes can find a new contractor. He didn't forget the diary from last semester. Voldemort's shadow is approaching, and if nothing unexpected happens, he won't have much time left. In an instant, Professor Dumbledore's mind flashed through the distant past and the near future. More than 100 years of life flashed through his mind, and finally turned into a sigh like a gasp. In principle, Hogwarts does not allow students to leave the castle at will during their studies, but considering that you are indeed capable of protecting yourself, be careful. Thank you, Professor, I will pay attention. Unexpectedly, Professor Dumbledore just lightly revealed this matter. Could it be that the power of the love card has increased again? After Adam left the principal's office, Professor Dumbledore glanced at Fawkes. After receiving the signal, the phoenix disappeared in a flame and disappeared. After sending Fawkes, Professor Dumbledore opened the drawer of his desk and took out a stack of letters from it. Triwizard Tournament. The Triwizard Tournament was once suspended due to the high mortality rate of students. Now it is restarted by the Ministry of Magic. Of course, it is impossible to involve only 3 schools. Many people from the German and French Ministries of Magic will also come, but not to Hogwarts. Originally, this kind of thing was not strange. Except for the fact that the Triwizard Tournament was suddenly restarted, the other procedures were in accordance with the rules, and Professor Dumbledore did not suspect anything. But combined with the news brought by Adam, it was hard for Professor Dumbledore not to suspect that the Ministries of Magic of the 3 countries had reached some kind of agreement behind the scenes, using this ancient activity to cover up their tracks. As for the cost, at most, a few students would die. It's not like they haven't died before. At most, we can wait and see whether to hold the next session. This cost is much higher than the possible benefits. It is worthless. Because someone who is very important in his life once set his sights on legends around the world for personal ideals, but unfortunately most of the legends are too illusory to pursue, and that guy can only focus on the legends of the UK in the end. Ahem, I don't want to think about the past. Anyway, Professor Dumbledore knows more about the legendary Hanging Gardens than most wizards in the world. According to the few words left in those historical records, the wizards in ancient times built this wonder not for growing flowers and plants, but for some weapons related to Abzu and Tiamat. Anyway, this is what is written in the ancient books, and it is impossible to tell the truth, but it is certain that the Hanging Gardens once had powerful military force. Thinking of this, Professor Dumbledore couldn't help pinching his nose. Unlike the Deathly Hallows, the Elder Wand is not that scary, at least in his eyes, even in, cough, I don't want to think about it anymore. The invisibility cloak has been in his hands for many years. The invisibility cloak that never fails is indeed magical, but that's all. And what about the Hanging Gardens? The wizards who once controlled the Hanging Gardens did rely on this wonder to rule the Mesopotamian region. Even Professor Dumbledore doesn't know what is hidden in it. But at present, the Hanging Gardens, which has become a ruin, can trap the teams organized by the Ministry of Magic of various countries, which is enough to prove that this relic is indeed extraordinary, and the power of the former Hanging Gardens is even more evident. Now the Ministry of Magic of various countries should be both worried and excited, right? Not afraid of danger inside, just afraid that there is nothing inside. However, greed has blinded their eyes, making them turn a blind eye to everything that the Hanging Gardens once encountered. The magnificent wonder, along with the wizards who controlled it, suddenly fell like a meteor at the peak of its booming development, sank into the ground, and became a ruin waiting to be explored today. Professor Dumbledore didn't know what was hidden in there, but he knew that it was best if it was buried deep underground forever, at least it shouldn't be dug out at this time. Professor Dumbledore slowly clenched his fist on the table, raised his head and looked into the void in the distance. He really didn't want to confront his old enemy while planning to take his former evil apprentice away with him. A faint sigh sounded in the principal's office. Maybe he should go out for a while. Chapter 139. Waking up from their sleep, Zora and Yahweh couldn't help but show a trace of doubt on their faces. How could they suddenly fall asleep? Are you awake? Looking up, Mr. Gandalf was looking at them with concern. The doubts on their faces disappeared immediately, and turned into guilt. They suddenly fell asleep. Mr. Gandalf must be very worried. Sorry, When the two just opened their mouths, Adam explained for them. The fruit you eat seems to have some kind of tranquilizing and sleeping ingredients. If you eat too much, you will fall asleep. It is better to reduce the intake as much as possible to maintain survival. So that's it. The two suddenly realized. As expected of scholars doing research, they discovered the effect of that fruit so quickly. Since the two woke up, the team naturally continued to move forward. After a few days, they found the mountains mentioned by the two. It is called a mountain range, but in fact there is no soil or plants. Looking up, the black high mountain in front of the ground is completely a kind of black mineral that is connected together, but Adam is not sure what it is. Adam began to wonder whether this is the mountain in the prophecy, especially when he walked all the way from the lake to the mountain. He did not see any trees. Mr. Gandalf, do you want to continue forward? Adam turned his head and looked at the two people, showing a smile. Sorry to bother you, but I still ask you to sleep for a while. Hearing this, the two people did not have an ominous premonition in their hearts, and the sleeping card had already brought them into a baby-like sleep. Adam spread his wings and flew into the air, looking down at the mountains from top to bottom, but still could not find the shadow of the tree. Could it be, the so-called mountains, waters, trees, and soil are all references? Did I misunderstand? After a long silence, Adam summoned a cloud card. The seal is lifted. A graceful figure emerged surrounded by the blue wind and flowing mist, with a gentle smile. Feng, please check around to see if there is a couple like this. Adam took out the photo Eugene gave him. Or, a place that meets the requirements of left side of the mountain, right side of the water, above the tree, and below the soil. We are now in the underground ruins, and probably below the soil is everywhere. It is not a good idea to use the wind card to explore. This place is not like the previous Fire Lake Cage. The area that needs to be explored is too large. Before he completely learns the magic of the wind card, his magic power cannot support a carpet search of such a large area. But after so many days, the previous exploration route has stagnated, and Adam is a little anxious, so he can only use a stupid method to explore one place at a time. Leave it to me. Feng glanced at the photo and turned into thousands of light breezes blowing towards the end of the endless sight. In front of a tent, a team was roasting a fire. Suddenly, a breeze blew by, and one of them couldn't help but pick up the compass beside him and count a few times. The grand view is above, follow and soon, and observe the world in the middle. Captain, are you suffering from occupational disease again? The person who spoke glanced at him and smiled as usual. It's almost done. I tell you, this thing tastes a bit like leeks when it's baked. Fortunately, I brought salt with me. The wind just now was unusual. Putting down the compass, the person called the captain looked in the direction of the wind. Someone is casting a spell. It seems that someone hasn't given up. The man who was baking a certain plant was silent for a moment and sighed. I don't know if the country will send reinforcements to rescue us. The captain said firmly. The Ministry of Magic will definitely not sit idly by and watch us trapped in the ruins. I'm not talking about the Ministry of Magic, but the office. The captain fell silent now. The office, whose full name is the Office of Traditional Culture and Religious Liaison, is the real Ministry of Magic in China compared to the Chinese Ministry of Magic, whose influence is limited to Hong Kong Island and whose influence has been shrinking in recent years. Strictly speaking, the Ministry of Magic is a subordinate department of the office. Looking at the current situation of the ruins, if the office does not take action, the Chinese Ministry of Magic may not be able to rescue them. But this time, the Ministry of Magic took the initiative to explore the ruins. Anyone with a discerning eye can see what they are planning behind the scenes. Will the office really send someone to rescue them? In the end, the captain could only say, these things are not for us to decide. Keep holding on and wait for rescue. Accompanied by the sound of the wind condensed in front of Adam, looked at Adam, whose face was a little pale, and shook his head with an apologetic look on his face. There are so many things around here. I didn't see the people in the photo, nor the trees, sorry. Hey! No need to apologize, what did you do wrong? Adam rubbed his swollen temples, not knowing whether it was due to too much magic power consumption or psychological factors, he felt a headache. I know, come back. Before returning to the Clow card, Feng thought for a while and said. Maybe you can ask Di to look for it. Di. It's just my guess. We are under the soil now, but there is still soil under us, isn't it? Hearing the words of Feng, Adam's eyes lit up. Yes. The first underground floor is underground, what about the second underground floor? Just because it is deep enough here and there is no way to go down, we can't ignore the possibility that there is still space below. The more he thought about it, the more possible it was. Adam couldn't help but want to try it now. Don't worry, Adam. Feng gently placed his hands on Adam's shoulders, stopping him from taking out the land card. You are already very tired, take a rest first. Okay, I know. Feng is right, even if he summons the land card, he can't explore very far with his current magic power. Rest first. Adam, how did it turn out today? Seeing Adam appear in the dormitory, Eugene, who had been waiting, hurried forward, and then found that Adam's face looked a little abnormal. What's wrong with your face? I'm fine, just a little tired, and it's almost time. Adam stopped Cologne from continuing to speak, and looked at his brothers who looked at him after hearing Cologne's words, with no flaws in his expression. I found some clues today, and I'll go and see tomorrow. Eugene opened his mouth. Actually, if you can't find it, forget it. Hey? Not only Adam, but the other three couldn't help looking at Eugene. It's just. I haven't met them, so. I don't miss them that much. Eugene hooked his fingers together and said with his head down. I have been prepared for a long time. They will die in some ruins at any time. Now, it's just that that day has really come. Let me look for it again. Adam patted his shoulder. Now I went to the ruins not only because of your parents. I found a kind of hairtail fish that is hundreds of meters long in it. Although the taste is average, there is great potential for development as a food library. Yet. Looking at Eugene who was still lowering his head, Adam sighed. This child, he didn't react when he heard the hairtail fish that was hundreds of meters long, and he still said he didn't miss his parents? Chapter 140. In the ruins of the Sky Garden, Adam and Di stood side by side. While sensing the underground, Di closed his eyes, and the position of his hands was very similar to that on the Clow card. What's the situation? Seeing Dee open his eyes, Adam asked hurriedly. There are indeed many spaces underground. Many. Yes. Dee stretched out his finger and touched Adam's forehead. Close your eyes. Adam closed his eyes as he was told, and then felt the magic power begin to flow again, and at the same time he suddenly saw something. Look down, you can see the situation underground. Hearing what Dee said, Adam lowered his head hurriedly, and was shocked by his new perspective. It was a perspective similar to an ultra-wide angle and perspective, which made Adam a little unaccustomed to it for a while. After spending some time getting used to this perspective, Adam looked underground again. There were indeed many spaces, and each space was connected to the layer where Adam and his friends stood through various channels. It probably took some special way to open the secret passage. Adam focused on the direction between the mountains not far away and the big lake in the distance. He didn't find any trees, but his vision didn't cover all the areas between the mountains and the big lake. Go back and find it. It was much easier to go back after walking all the way here. The cards flashed all the way, and Adam relied on the vision provided by the land cards to X-ray the underground all the way. Finally, his hard work paid off. Found it. Adam finally found a tree, just underground. It was a very vast space. The top of the space was hundreds of meters underground. The entrance to the passage there was in the area next to the big lake where there was no grass, that is, the area where poisonous insects appeared. By the way, the big lake did not disappoint Adam. Through the perspective provided by the land cards, Adam could see that the bottom of the lake was completely a trapezoidal cylinder, and he couldn't see the bottom until the end of his sight. Putting the matter of the big lake aside for now, Adam didn't look for the entrance, and directly relied on the magic of pulling cards and the infinite magic of the magic stone to shuttle all the way. To the left of the mountain, to the right of the water, above the tree, below the soil, could it be this tree? With expectation, Adam finally arrived inside the space. Unlike the pitch black above, where only some fluorescent cattails could provide some light, the space where the tree was located had natural light sources, and the brightness was very high. Everywhere he looked was covered with glowing crystals, even the tree itself. Countless twisted, golden-colored tree roots spread across the ground of the entire space, and the center of the space was the main body of the golden giant tree. The top of the trunk and the center of the 9 main branches were the main light sources of this space. A glowing sphere illuminated the underground space like daytime, but the bottom of the sphere was wrapped in a dark shadow. The branches spread out from the 9 main branches were covered with crystal leaves and flowers, reflecting dazzling fire under the illumination of this light source. The vision provided by the ground card had no color but only shape. After entering the space, everything in front of him was like a dream, which shocked Adam to the point of almost losing his voice. Before Adam could come to his senses, the natives of the underground space gave a warm welcome to Adam, the unexpected visitor. The sound of crystals exploding sounded not far in front of him. A crystal suddenly exploded in front of him and exploded into a pool of liquid. Adam then noticed that he was attacked. The colorful light reflected from all directions greatly disturbed Adam's vision, so that he didn't even know when the attack happened and where it came from. But it doesn't matter. The dark staff gently tapped forward, causing a ripple in the air. All the messy light was distorted in the range of the ripples. Adam looked around, and after being filtered, the attacker was nowhere to hide. It was a kind of insect with a body divided into 3 sections, somewhat similar to a bee, about a circle smaller than an adult's palm. The main part of the body looked exactly the same as the crystals that could be seen everywhere in the space. The attack method was to directly launch the lower abdomen body. No wonder there was liquid in the crystal. Grabbing one with his hand, Adam could not help but observe the rest of the insects for a while and found that the remaining head and chest of the insects kept leaking liquid from the broken ends, and then lost vital signs after a few seconds. Yes, very strong. Throwing the dead insect aside, Adam flew towards the golden giant tree, and obviously aroused great hostility from the insects on the way. This thing was almost everywhere in this space, and Adam was still able to locate Adam even though he had used the phantom card to cover his body, which was very strange. Adam came to the center of the crown of the golden giant tree despite the attack of the insects, and also it is next to the glowing ball. Above the tree, under the soil, it is here. Just now, Adam saw a strange black shadow under the light source. It turned out that the ball was not directly grown or stuck on the golden tree, but was supported by a circle of large crystals. At this time, there were 4 people in the surrounding crystals, trapped in the crystals like insects in amber, blocking part of the light emitted by the ball. The faces of 2 of them were 70% similar to the photos given by Eugene, but they looked a little older. Finally found it. So, this is the image of mirror, illusion, and shadow? The double card refers to the two of them together. In the clustered crystals, the figures of the four people were constantly refracted. At first glance, it was like a mirror maze. Eugene's parents were sealed in the same crystal holding hands, and there was an inexplicable sour smell around the crystal. Adam heaved a sigh of relief but couldn't help but feel disappointed. He had thought it would be more exciting, like the magic that could clone people. No, it was magical props or something, and like the real and fake Monkey King. I'm real. I'm the real one. Forget it, it's better to be plain. After all, they are Eugene's parents. It will be like a heavenly book, with a bunch of fathers, and mothers, fighting for a son. This lethal dose of parental love, even Eugene, whose parents have been absent for more than 10 years, may not be able to withstand. Adam walked to the crystal, reached out and touched the crystal, curious about how these people got in, and then he felt a suction from the crystal. Fortunately Adam had a shield to protect him. Okay, now he knows how they got in. There is no doubt that this is a trap. Adam retracted his hand and looked at the four people again, a little hesitant. There was only one card left in the divination result that had not been interpreted. That card meant that Eugene's parents were in a coma, and there was no target next, or it meant something else. To be on the safe side, Adam planned to rescue one of the other two first. The other two were a middle-aged man and a young woman. Adam rescued the middle-aged man first. With a sword in his hand, the crystal was cut open. What made Adam a little concerned was that only the outermost layer of the crystal was solid, and the inside was full of liquid, the same liquid that flowed out of the crystal bugs from the broken end. Now thinking back, the crystal that attacked him also splashed this liquid after it exploded. Fortunately, the man did not turn into water. Adam checked and found that he still had vital signs. After calling him a few times without response, Adam decided to take some special measures. Chapter 141. The man woke up in pain. After opening his eyes, he felt that his vision seemed to be affected to a certain extent. Why was there only a slit in the world he saw? And his eyes hurt so much. Are you awake? The man looked over with some difficulty. In his sight, there was an old man who looked a little kind sitting in front of him. The other person's pure white clothes were reflected by the crystals around him. Crystal? Crystal. That's right. They should have been caught by those weird crystal worms in the underground ruins, and then. Ah! You! What are you? The man was horrified, thinking that the other person was an aboriginal here. The snow-white clothes matched the dazzling crystals around him inexplicably, and even the skin was very white, looking like someone who lived in a place without sunlight. Calm down, kid, I'm a scholar, you can call me Gandalf. Scholar? Yes, I found this place and found you trapped inside the crystal. Can you tell me what you encountered? As if he thought of something extremely terrible, the man's body shook, and then began to talk about their experiences intermittently. From being forcibly recruited by the Ministry of Magic at the beginning, to being attacked by the Kraken when entering the ruins and the team being scattered, to them mistakenly entering the underground space and being attacked because their vision was affected, his last memory before he fainted was the crystal bugs crawling towards him. Adam nodded and said to the man with a smile. Do you feel uncomfortable now? Except for the lack of strength in my body, it seems that there is nothing uncomfortable. Okay. Adam nodded and stood up from the crystal. Basically the same as you said last time, I'll ask another one. Let the man fall into a baby-like sleep. Adam turned around and raised his sword, breaking the crystal that sealed the young woman. Pa. The woman opened her eyes in pain and found puzzled that her cheeks seemed to feel a burst of pain. Are you awake? After some questioning, the two people's oral statements were basically consistent, with only one difference. The middle-aged man said that the person sent by the Ministry of Magic to monitor them was a young woman, while the young woman said that the person sent by the Ministry of Magic to monitor them was a middle-aged man. Oh, Rashomon. Fortunately, Adam didn't care who was an employee of the Ministry of Magic. He only tested to confirm whether getting people out of the crystal would cause any problems with their physical or mental health. Seeing that the two still had the mind to intrigue, it should be fine. Adam swung the sword to rescue Eugene's parents, put them aside and waited for them to wake up, and then began to study the crystal and glowing ball next to them. The middle-aged man with swollen eyes and the young woman with purple cheeks, number % Ewan. What is this? Adam cut off the top of a crystal column and shook it gently, and the liquid inside rippled. Relying on the protection of the shield, Adam even stretched out his finger to dip a little. The liquid was colorless and transparent, and it felt a little thicker than water. It was a bit like milk tea. It seemed that all the crystals in this space were the same, with only a hard shell on the outside, and the inside was full of that strange liquid. Even the bugs were the same, with no internal organs but such liquid inside. The internal structure of the crystals and bugs was the same, so does that mean that these bugs and crystals are essentially the same? Are the crystals alive too? Adam turned his head and saw Eugene's father waking up. Hello, is this Mr. Jackson Clower? When he saw Adam, Jackson was still confused. He did not answer Adam's words, but subconsciously looked around and found his wife Melinda, who was still in a coma. The unconscious wife, the crystals around him. Jackson remembered what had happened before and looked at Adam. You are. After seeing that Adam was a child, the vigilance in Jackson's words and eyes gradually turned into hesitation and dullness, and even a little doubt. Doubting life, doubting his cognition, memory, and vision. My name is Adam, and I'm Eugene's classmate. Eugene's classmate. Eugene wrote to his grandmother because you wrote that you would visit him at Christmas, but his grandmother said that you were dead. A lot of things happened in the meantime. Anyway, I found this place and now I'm here to save you. Speaking of this, Adam couldn't help but frown. Whether Eugene's parents were in trouble or not, the outside world would not receive any news. Then who were those who went to Eugene's grandmother to deliver the body and wrote to Eugene? Come, to save us. Jackson repeated it a little dully, and Adam was even a little worried about his mental state. But this really can't be blamed on Jackson, but what Adam said was a little too outrageous. Because the parents of his classmates were in danger, he ran to the dangerous ruins to rescue them. Let alone how Adam did it, isn't this friendship a little too indestructible? Even if they were Hufflepuffs, it wouldn't be so outrageous, right? You know, the couple used to be Hufflepuffs. Oh, by the way, the son should also be Hufflepuff, right? Jackson felt a little guilty. For a moment, Jackson couldn't even think about Adam being a liar, because a liar wouldn't make up such an outrageous reason to win people's trust, but he still had to confirm it in the end. Do you have any way to prove your identity? After saying this, Jackson saw that Adam looked at him with a complicated look, which seemed to carry a little condemnation. Good question. When I asked Eugene this question before, he was silent for a long time, and then told me that he didn't have any tokens to prove his identity. He had never even seen you, at least not in his memory. Jackson wanted to say that he and Melinda went home once when Eugene was 2 years old, but swallowed his words after hearing Adam's supplement. Melinda, who had just woken up next to him, couldn't help but blame herself. This photo should barely prove my identity. Fortunately, you don't look much different from the photo. Adam took out the photo and thought about it. Oh, by the way, there are also the birthday gifts Eugene gave me over the years and the Christmas gifts in the first year. It is said that they are things you brought back. You should be able to recognize them. With an inexplicable mentality, Eugene gave gifts with the main point that he didn't feel bad for selling his father's land for a son, and all 4 brothers in the dormitory had a share. Regardless of Eugene's mood when he gave these gifts, Jackson's heart couldn't help but twitch when he saw these things, especially when he saw the bottle of good luck fountain water. Even Melinda couldn't help but sit up. That's probably the real good luck fountain water. I think this thing should be a fake. Then Adam's words stabbed the 2 people's hearts directly, with outstanding effect, and directly silenced the 2 people. After all, if this is true, then you should have bathed in the good luck fountain, and you wouldn't be forcibly recruited by the Ministry of Magic and locked up here. The luck of ordinary people is not so unlucky. After saying that, Adam put the bottle of good luck fountain water away again. After all, in Adam's eyes, no matter what kind of fountain it is, the friendship attached to it is the most precious value of this bottle of fountain water. Chapter 142. Adam won Eugene's parents' trust very smoothly. He silenced, disarmed, and broke their defense. After a set of smooth combos, the 2 fell into deep self-blame. Adam's opinion on this is, what the hell were you doing? What kind of business would you leave your child behind for more than 10 years without going back to see him? Those who know clearly that you 2 are exploring ruins, while those who don't know would think that you 2 are going to control floods or build atomic bombs. How did you find time to get pregnant with Eugene and give birth to him when you were so busy? Don't talk about sending money home all the time. Is money enough to raise a child? What if Eugene's grandmother is so old and something happens to her? By the time you remember to go home, she might be dead. It's clearly irresponsible and unwilling to bear the obligation of raising children. If you don't want to raise children, then don't give birth to them in the first place. Adam certainly couldn't say these words directly to his classmates' parents, but as the saying goes, you will dream about what you think about during the day, and if you feel guilty during the day, then it would be reasonable for them to dream about Eugene's grandmother scolding them, right? Adam wrote. Having found Eugene's parents, the most important thing now is to get them out. The card can't teleport with people, and there are anti-port keys and apparition here, so, use the card to cover your body and then go out through the hole. After that, you can use the port key or something like that. Just as Adam was thinking, a flame ignited out of thin air, and a familiar figure emerged in the fire. Fawkes. Adam's eyes lit up. Did Professor Dumbledore ask you to help? Fawkes nodded, then looked at Jackson and Melinda. This is Fawkes, Professor Dumbledore's phoenix. The phoenix's apparition will not be affected by the magic here. Fawkes can take you away from here. Phoenix. Melinda looked at Fawkes and couldn't help but be dazed for a moment, then she came back to her senses and looked at Adam. Wait. Now that we have a way to leave, we still want to continue exploring. These two people are doomed. Adam couldn't bear it anymore and knocked Melinda to the ground with a dark stick. In addition to amplifying power, the Force card can also be used to subtly control the Force. For example, now, although it hits the back of the head, it doesn't hurt the brain. After sighing that the dark staff was indeed easy to swing, Adam weighed the dark staff and looked at Jackson, who was nodding just now. Where do you want to be teleported to? Jackson's brain was working rapidly, and he remembered a key point Adam mentioned before. Go home. Those who ran to my house must have heard that my husband and I were trapped in the ruins, and then they had bad intentions. We must go back and take a look first. Then Jackson reported their home address. Well, let these two weirdos go to meet Eugene now. Adam was afraid that Eugene's Taoism would collapse, so he went back and let Eugene's grandmother teach him a lesson first. Adam looked at Fawkes. Fawkes, do you know that address? Fawkes nodded. There was no place in England that he didn't know. Well, I don't know the way, just take me with you. Adam took out a piece of candy from his pocket. This thing doesn't have a fixed name. Adam has seen the same thing in different places with 7 or 8 names. The more common names are probably Ding Shiso or Hung Jibeo. It is a kind of 1000-layer crispy candy made of sesame, peanuts, lard, maltose, and other materials. It is often seen in pastry shops selling New Year candy and stove candy. Adam's biggest impression of it is that it is sweet, so sweet that one piece has to be eaten in 3 meals. As a result, when he took Fawkes to see all the goods in the store that day and asked Fawkes to choose what he liked to eat, Fawkes chose it at once. Maybe it's because high oil and high sugar can restore energy. Anyway, this kind of crispy candy has become Fawkes's feed since then. After eating the whole piece of crispy candy in 2 bites, Fawkes squinted his eyes and flapped his wings comfortably, then stretched out his claws to signal Adam to hold it. Hold Fawkes's claws. Adam floated Melinda up and asked Jackson to hold her with his other hand. Is this okay? Fawkes nodded, and then the whole bird turned into flames, wrapping Adam and the others along the claws. There was no feeling of being squeezed into a pipe-like apparition, nor was there a feeling of being hooked on the belly button like a door key. It was similar to the card shifting. When the flames around faded, they had already reached their destination. Where is your home? Adam said as he took out another piece of candy and handed it to Fawkes. Fawkes did not eat it directly, but took the red paper wrapper outside and disappeared in the flames. Jackson looked around and raised his hand hesitantly. Over there. Are you asking me? Fortunately, the wizard's houses and surroundings would not change much in decades, let alone more than a decade. After some recollection, Jackson still found where his home was. However, Jackson's sudden return obviously caused a sensation. After all, his funeral had already been held. After several screams, calls for help, and several spells, Jackson was subdued by Mrs. Lauren, Eugene's grandmother, and several wizards. Speaking of which, the friends that Mrs. Lauren found were really powerful. The coma spell, petrification spell, and binding spell were connected very smoothly. Before Adam could even speak, Jackson was already lying on the ground. Seeing that the old lady had taken out the truth serum and was about to pour it into Jackson's mouth, Adam quickly appeared to stop her. Save him! The shield withstood several spells before Adam finished explaining. He then recalled the trip to Egypt with Mrs. Lauren, and Mrs. Lauren believed that Adam had really done such a magical thing. A third-year student at Hogwarts could enter the ruins of the Hanging Gardens to save people? A group of wizards with an average age of over 65 looked at Adam in surprise. Adam said that compared with the feat of a certain savior, it might not be that magical. A baby could bounce back Avada Kedavra just by love. Voldemort and the moon worshipper said MMP. Then you should ask them for the specific situation. Adam's eyes paused on the unconscious Melinda, and then he looked away as if nothing had happened. I have to go back and tell Eugene about this. Sorry to bother you. Mrs. Lauren is still in shock, and she doesn't know what to say for a moment. You can't just tell them to study hard, right? They skipped classes to save their son and daughter-in-law, and it's not certain how much Hogwarts can teach them based on their abilities. Before leaving, Adam found Mrs. Lauren alone and gave her some instructions. Please keep an eye on them and don't let them run around. In addition, they seem to be full of adventures, so I hope you can emphasize the importance of Eugene to them. To put it bluntly, even if you have to pretend to love Eugene, at least in front of Eugene. As for whether this is forcing Eugene's parents, he saved their lives, and if they couldn't provide Eugene with the missing parental love, would Adam care about their lives? The two bruised and swollen ones are still in the ruins. Don't worry, I've cast a tracking spell on them, and I'll break their legs if they still want to run. Mrs. Lauren glanced at the shadow outside the door who trembled when she heard this, and said faintly. Anyway, with the family's savings, even if the two of them lie in St. Mungo's for the rest of their lives, they will not have to worry about food and drink, and we can go to see them when we are free. Hiss. Although I saw it in the letter before, now the preparations and follow-up arrangements are done. Is this really going to break the leg? Such a decisive move, plus the group of friends outside, it seems that Mrs. Lauren is also a person with a story. Then I feel relieved. Chapter 143. Back in the dormitory, Adam wanted to tell Eugene the good news that the people had been rescued. Maybe it was because it was still daytime and there was no one in the dormitory. Adam cast a trace spell but found that everyone was at the Quidditch field. There was a Quidditch match today. Not only that, but judging from the positions of Eugene and Colin, Hufflepuff was one of the two participating teams. Adam was just wondering for a second why no one had told him about this, and then he remembered that he was so busy during this period, and it was indeed understandable that they didn't tell him about this little thing. I don't know if Eugene's condition will be affected. Let's go and see. Using the illusion card, Adam quietly replaced the Adam imitated by the mirror card. At this time, Ravenclaw's quaffle was blocked by Eugene, and Hufflepuff applauded and cheered. Hey! Look, hey! Bernard just turned his head and wanted to say something, looking at Adam and frowned. Adam! How did you recognize me? Adam was a little surprised. Depends on the look, the sitting posture, but mainly depends on the feeling. The Adam simulated by the mirror card looks exactly like Adam himself, but there is no such feeling, or rather no such taste. Adam nodded as if he understood what he said. Bernard was probably talking about his unconcealable handsomeness. Why did you come back suddenly? Hearing the movement here, Uther turned around. Solved. There were people all around, so he spoke more obscurely. Well, it's solved. Sure enough, he is as reliable as ever. How is the game now? Adam glanced at the score. Hufflepuff was leading Ravenclaw by 30 points. Is Eugene affected? No, on the contrary, he seems a little too excited. Bernard shook his head. I didn't tell you before because I was afraid you would worry. During this period, Eugene has been training so hard that he even recklessly. I always thought that only the captain of Gryffindor could do such an operation as leaving the flying broom to catch the quaffle. What? Adam startled, he looked in the direction of Eugene, who was defending in front of the 3 goals with an infinite symbol. Is Eugene injured? He was fine after lying in the hospital wing for an afternoon, and then he was scolded by Cedric, and then he restrained himself a little. But I can still see that he is holding back a lot of energy. Uther looked at Adam. Fortunately you came back early, otherwise I don't know what he would be like in the next game. Is that so? It seems that Eugene's parents have a great influence on him, and I will contact Eugene's grandmother again later. After being busy for so many days, Adam finally had some free time, and he counted the things to do next. It's almost time to brew the wolfsbane potion again. Although Professor Lupin looked a little pitiful last time, Adam has already accepted Professor Snape's Felicity potion, and it's not good to go back on his word. Anyway, a year will pass quickly, and Professor Lupin will be patient. Then there is the location of the restaurant. Before this, Colin's father volunteered to help. Now there is a clue. Adam plans to make an appointment to go to Hogsmeade Village to take a look and buy it if it is possible. The decoration of the Dream Dessert Workshop should also be finalized. Before, Ambrosio sent a letter saying that he was interested in working for him, but Adam was too busy looking for someone to deal with it. Now that the person has been found, the decoration and stocking should be completed as soon as possible, and we should try to reopen before Christmas this year. Speaking of Christmas, Christmas is coming soon, and the menu should also be finalized sometime. Ah! I almost forgot, there is also Rowena Ravenclaw's crown. I have to find a chance to give it to Professor Flitwick. While Adam was planning, the game on the field also came to an end. Colin hit a bludger in front of Zhongqiu, and Zhongqiu had to stop flying. It was at this time that Cedric grabbed the golden snitch. Ding Lulu! Accompanied by Madame Hooch's whistle, the Hufflepuffs burst into warm cheers and applause. Let's go, we have to celebrate tonight. Adam clapped his hands and stood up with a smile on his face. The Hufflepuffs' victory was one thing, and Eugene's parents were rescued safely was another, but the Hufflepuffs around him could only hear the former. In any case, Adam said he wanted to celebrate, so there must be delicious food. As the news of the celebration spread, the applause and cheers of the Hufflepuffs suddenly became more enthusiastic. Following the flow of people to the field below, the team members were surrounded by the excited Hufflepuffs. At this time, they were applauding their friends from a slightly forward position. Eugene smiled and accepted everyone's congratulations. When his eyes moved to Adam, he couldn't help but pause. This smile was not the innocent smile of Jing, but Adam himself. Why was he here at this time? Could it be? Excited, Eugene wanted to squeeze over with his physique, but he saw Adam shaking his head at him, then pointed in the direction of the castle, indicating that he should go back and talk. Eugene nodded, barely suppressing his excitement. Back in the Hufflepuff common room, everyone was celebrating, only two people were huddled in a corner. Oh! Although he had already guessed, Eugene still shed tears of excitement when he really learned that his parents had been rescued. Thank you. No need to thank me, you should be able to help me run the store next time, right? Adam sighed. Just now, a few classmates came to complain to me, saying that they mixed up their desserts when you were running the store. I see. I knew that he was not in the right state before, but it was another matter when Adam directly explained it. Eugene held back his tears and his cheeks flushed. Then Hey! Eugene, why are you here? Another batsman, Mike, came over and was stunned when he saw Eugene's face. You're crying. So excited? You should smile after winning, come and eat delicious food together. Eugene was pulled away in the middle of his words. No matter what Eugene thought, Adam was relieved. He could never adapt to such occasions of being thanked solemnly. However, as the saying goes, you can't escape the trouble. After returning to the dormitory at night, Adam was still caught by Eugene and said thank you for a long time. Adam had no choice but to tell Eugene that he could go back to see his parents on Christmas Day, which diverted his attention. What should I prepare? What should I say then? Eugene, who was entangled, not only stopped pestering Adam, but even ate the barbecue absent-mindedly. If Adam hadn't cast the spell of exorcism, he would have been stuck in his throat by a fish bone. After the waves subsided, Adam finally returned to his ordinary campus life. Chapter 144. It was another day to go to Hogsmeade. Adam and Colin's father made an appointment to look at houses for sale in the afternoon. In the basement of the Dream Dessert Workshop, he was talking to Ambrosio about the next shop renovation plan. The secret door of the cellar was opened with a pants sound, and 3 little lions came out of the secret passage. What are you doing? Adam looked at the shaky secret door after being violently opened, and thought to himself that he would ask Uncle Bernard to order a titanium alloy one with a magic lock next time. Seeing someone outside the secret passage, Harry and the other 2 felt their already pounding hearts tighten, and they breathed a sigh of relief after seeing who it was. Adam! No time to talk, run! The 3 rushed forward, pulling Adam and Ambrosio to run, but found that they couldn't pull them. Ambrosio was too big, and Adam was holding a shield, so he was as solid as a rock. What happened? Adam frowned, grabbed Harry's collar and pulled him back in front of him. Harry, who had been pulling Adam for a long time but he didn't move, was stunned for a moment, and then hurriedly said. It's Pettigrew. Oh, I can't explain it for a while, let's go. Adam frowned, it's not Christmas yet, how could Pettigrew be exposed so quickly? Forget it, what does it have to do with him? Oh, little Harry, where do you want to go? Hearing this voice, Harry and the others' hair exploded. Pettigrew slowly climbed up the ladder from the secret door, revealing his sparsely haired head, and grinned at Harry and the others. The activity map was made by James and his friends, but I was also James's good friend. Which secret passage on it do I not know? You bastard! Harry's eyes turned red when he heard this, not because he was about to cry, but because he was angry. Hermione and Ron were also very angry. They have now figured out the truth of the year. How dare this traitor who pretended to be a hero say such things in front of Harry? He don't be sad, little Harry, I'll take you and your friends to see James and Lee. Bang! Adam used the flat surface of the dark staff to slap Pettigrew, who was halfway up the ladder and had just emerged from the secret passage, back, and looked at Ambrosio who had already taken out the wand. Ambrosio, were you a Hufflepuff? Yes, what's wrong? Ambrosio was shocked by Adam's move and answered after a second. Oh, it's okay. Adam nodded and said nothing. It seems that Hufflepuff really has a buff that reduces its presence. What is this? Is it a passerby halo? While thinking, Pettigrew's furious voice came from the secret passage. Ah! Little devil! How dare you sneak attack me? I will kill you! This time Pettigrew learned his lesson, and a hand holding a magic wand first stretched out from the secret passage. Unfortunately, he probably didn't pay attention to the silent spell class at the beginning, and he didn't start chanting and casting spells until his hand was exposed. Thunderbolt! Snap! Adam swept the dark rod, and the magic wand in Pettigrew's hand was swept away. Fighting with the berserker? No, it's a person who practices both magic and martial arts, and dared not keep a distance? Do you think he can only stupidly take out the magic wand to cast spells? At this time, of course, fists and feet are faster. Then, just as Pettigrew's hand was panicking and supporting the ground, and he was about to climb up to find the magic wand, Adam directly swung the dark rod and smashed Pettigrew's palm several times with the bottom without spikes. Ah! Accompanied by a wail, Pettigrew's hand suddenly retracted into the secret passage, and several heavy objects fell in the secret passage. It was estimated that he did not hold the ladder firmly and fell down. Seeing this, Adam jumped directly from the entrance of the secret passage holding the dark staff. Harry, the three people and Ambrosio who witnessed the whole process. What is that? Ron was still a little dazed when he spoke. Adam just, suddenly conjured up a thorny stick, and then beat Pettigrew with that stick. In fact, I feel that it is more like the magician's staff in fairy tales. Hermione couldn't help correcting, but thinking about how Adam used it just now, she was silent again. Don't stand there stupidly, go and help. Harry pulled the two of them and quickly climbed down the ladder. Pettigrew had lost his wand. Seeing Adam swinging his wand just now, he was not afraid that Adam would not be able to beat Pettigrew. The main thing was that the opportunity to beat a drowning dog could not be missed. Pettigrew was falling in free fall, while Adam could jump directly. But they couldn't, so when they went down to the secret passage, Pettigrew had been rolled into a ball by Adam. Well, to be more specific, Pettigrew's originally short and fat body shrank into a ball, and then he was beaten to the ground by Adam with the bottom of the dark rod, and he kept wailing for mercy. Stop hitting me! I surrender! Stop it, it hurts! Listen to me, woo woo woo! Ron looked at the scene in front of him and couldn't help saying. Do you remember what we heard old Mag say about him last time? That kid, there is always no hope in a duel. Another wailing, Hermione shrank her neck and repeated what she heard at that time. Little did he know that Pettigrew was also furious now because of the beating. Before he joined Voldemort, he was always looked down upon and said to be a follower of James and his friends. Now that he joined Voldemort and learned some black magic, why is he still looked down upon even though he is a rat and beaten by Hogwarts students? Didn't he join Voldemort for nothing? Enough! Petty Dwarf suddenly stopped being beaten and raised his hand and roared. Then he saw Adam change the end of the dark staff after being stunned for a moment, and the circle of spikes on the top flashed with a faint light. Petty Dwarf! Before he fainted, Pettigrew's thoughts flew, and his past flashed like a revolving lantern. He had been cowardly and incompetent since he was a child. After entering Hogwarts, he was included in the small team by James and his friends because he was a roommate, but it still did not change his current situation. He was the most out of place in the team. He had tried hard, and even learned the super difficult magic of animagus from James and the others, but the animal he could transform into seemed to be a mockery of fate. His animagus was a mouse. He was indeed a mouse, destined to be different from James and the others who lived in the Sunday. Oh, Remus lived in the moonlight. No matter what, he finally accepted the reality and found his way of survival. Although he was forced to join Voldemort at the beginning, Pettigrew quickly adjusted his mentality, worked hard for Voldemort, and took action against his former brother James. After all, if his brother didn't die and Voldemort didn't succeed, wouldn't he, who was afraid of being tortured and surrendered, be too useless? Even if it was a mouse, he didn't want to be a useless mouse. However, he did a good job on his side, but Voldemort failed first. Who would have thought that Voldemort would fall on a baby? After that, Pettigrew's journey was full of ups and downs. First, he was found by Sirius, and he had to sacrifice a finger to use dark magic to escape. Then, he was caught as a real mouse in the animagus form. Not long after, he was bought by the Weasley family to his son as a pet. Petty also thought about escaping, but what could he do after escaping? How good it is now! He became a hero by accident. His only relative became the hero's mother, and the only one who knew about it, Sirius, was sent to Azkaban again. Although he is now living the life of a mouse, at least he has food and shelter, and is a happy mouse. So, Sirius, it would be great if you didn't escape from prison. Before he fainted, Pettigrew seemed to see Sirius' face. Chapter 145. Damn, why did you suddenly yell so loudly? You scared me. After Pettigrew fell unconscious, Adam cursed and swung his stick at Pettigrew twice, and then looked at the two people who had just walked out of the other end of the secret passage. Sirius, and Professor Lupin. Judging from the two people's appearance, they had obviously clarified the misunderstanding and chased Pettigrew all the way. The plot has really changed a lot. Such a sigh just came out in his heart and was thrown behind Adam's mind. It's hard to say about the world scope, but within Hogwarts, his influence is too great, and it is normal for the plot to change a lot. If the original story can still be developed under this situation, it can only mean that there is a hand constantly correcting his influence on Harry's experience. After arriving, Professor Lupin and Sirius first surrounded Harry and the other three to check if the three were injured, and then looked at Adam. It happened that Adam also looked at them at this time. Adam! Professor Lupin recognized the student in front of him. He looked at the dark staff in Adam's hand and then at Pettigrew on the ground next to him. The words he had organized were stuck in his throat. What's the situation down there now? Ambrosio's voice came from above. Because of his size, he couldn't go down to the secret passage. He asked hurriedly after hearing the noise below calm down. Who is that? An attacker? Do you need me to notify the Ministry of Magic? No. Professor Lupin raised his head and shouted. Sirius's grievances have not been cleared yet. If the people from the Ministry of Magic come over, they will definitely take him away first. You are? Ambrosio frowned. Why is there another voice that he didn't hear just now? Professor Lupin saw that Ambrosio did not recognize his identity, and hurriedly looked at Adam. Harry and his friends just came through the secret passage. The extra Adam was obviously the one who was here with Ambrosio before. In addition, Adam said that he bought Honeyduke's candy store, so it was reasonable for him to be here. Adam, explained to him quickly. We can't tell the Ministry of Magic first. We have to take him to see Professor Dumbledore first. Adam nodded, looked up and said. Ambrosio, according to what he said, there is no need to tell the Ministry of Magic. You go and arrange it first. Okay, boss. After Ambrosio finished speaking, the footsteps gradually faded away. Professor Lupin didn't think there was anything wrong, but Sirius couldn't help but take a deep look at Adam. Then he felt nauseous and scared, and he couldn't help but knock his forehead with his fist. Could it be that he had been with the Dementors for a long time, and his mind was not normal? Or did the outside world become so magical in just a dozen years after he was imprisoned? Let's go, Professor Lupin. I'll take this guy to see Professor Dumbledore with you. I still have things to do this afternoon. Adam pointed at Pettigrew on the ground. If you're busy, you don't have to go with us. Professor Lupin hesitated. In fact, they still had some things to ask Pettigrew. If possible, they didn't want anyone else to be present, including Professor Dumbledore. Adam raised his eyebrows when he heard this. This. I'm afraid it won't go as you wish. A deep and familiar voice sounded, and Professor Snape walked out of the darkness with his wand in hand. His eyes moved from everyone present. When he saw Pettigrew on the ground, he frowned fiercely, and finally his eyes fell on Professor Lupin and Sirius. Everyone present must go with me to see Professor Dumbledore, including the one next to you, the fugitive from Azkaban. You dirty slug! Sirius' temper exploded all of a sudden, and he pulled out the wand he got from nowhere. Sirius! Professor Lupin grabbed the somewhat excited Sirius, squinted his eyes and looked at Professor Snape. How did you find me? I don't need to explain to you. It seems that you don't plan to leave with me. Professor Snape sneered, and did not answer Professor Lupin's question, but winked at Adam. Adam waved the dark wand knowingly, and countless vines and branches in the darkness wrapped around Sirius from all directions. What is this? Remus, be careful. The flames are blazing. By the light of the fire, the two saw clearly that they were surrounded by the devil's snare and poisonous tentacles, but the devil's snare should have retreated after seeing the fire, and the poisonous tentacles should not have grown in the dark secret passage. Without time to think, the two began to cast spells on the plants surrounding their feet. Adam looked. Seeing this scene, Harry and the other two who had just taken out their wands to attack Adam suddenly turned their heads back. Seeing this, they hurriedly put away their wands and then gave Adam an awkward but polite smile. Seeing that the sneak attack failed, Harry quickly tried to persuade him verbally. Adam, Sirius is not a bad guy. He is a wanted criminal of the Ministry of Magic. The Ministry of Magic is not always right. Adam glanced at Hermione, who refuted and continued. Professor Snape just wants to take him to see Professor Dumbledore. Ron also wanted to say something, but Professor Snape spoke in advance. On one side is a wanted criminal and a werewolf, and on the other side is the Ministry of Magic, a professor and the dean. Which side do you think Adam will believe more? Professor Snape folded his hands in front of his chest and smiled gloomily at the two people who were besieged and in a panic. Times have changed. Looking at the silent three people, Adam shrugged his shoulders, then turned to Professor Lupin and Sirius and said. Give up resistance, we won't hurt you. Bullshit. I will never surrender to a slug. Sirius still had the mind to throw a spell at Professor Snape not far away. Professor Snape waved his wand to block the spell, and his face suddenly became gloomy. Hanging upside down. Take out the long-lost wand. Adam controlled the poisonous tentacles to entangle Sirius, and then hung him upside down in the air with a spell. The poisonous tentacles took this opportunity to whip Sirius's wrist. The venom of the tender branches was not fatal, but it was enough to paralyze his wrist and make his wand fall out of his hand. Sirius couldn't help but yell a few times after losing his wand. Professor Snape waved his wand at him with a gloomy face, and the pink bubble water filled Sirius's mouth all of a sudden, making his yelling unclear. Then, Adam and Professor Snape's eyes fell on Professor Lupin. With the poisonous tentacles and devil's snares around him, Professor Lupin swallowed his saliva and decisively chose to follow his heart, throwing his wand aside and raising his hands. Seeing this, Adam sighed with some regret and dispersed the Chinese biting cabbage and mandrake that were ambushing in the dark. With the quiet card, he can use the mandrake as a fixed point and directional sonic weapon without worrying about hurting his own people. As for using the sound card to simulate the cry of the mandrake, although it is possible, I always feel that the crying of the mandrake is also an indispensable part of this weapon, just like shouting hurry up and obey the order before throwing the talisman. Unless it is absolutely necessary, Adam refuses to deprive the moves of their souls. Chapter 146. Professor Dumbledore, we have brought everyone here safely. If nothing happens, I have an appointment. Looking at Sirius, whose brain was congested and foaming at the mouth, and whose twitching was caused by the paralysis of the poisonous tentacles, and Pettigrew, whose wounds were swollen and bleeding, Professor Dumbledore hesitated for a rare moment. Safe. This guy chased Harry and the others and said he was going to harm them. Most importantly, he even planned to cast a curse on us. I had to use some violent means to stop his evil deeds. Adam pointed at Pettigrew and said, and Harry and the others nodded in support of him. As for this guy, he is a wanted criminal of the Ministry of Magic. He broke into the Gryffindor common room and caused me to cough. As a result, everyone had to spend the night in the hall. I have reason to doubt his position, even if he appeared with Professor Lupin. Adam glanced at Professor Lupin. In view of the previous record of the Professor of Defense against the Dark Arts last year and the year before, as well as Professor Lupin's species, and his unwillingness to come to see you, I used some extraordinary means. Harry and the others hesitated, but still nodded. What Adam said seemed to be fine. Cough. Sirius spit out the foam that came up from his throat and said angrily. When did I not want to come to see Dumbledore? Pink bubbles came out of Sirius' mouth again. Why didn't you explain it at that time? Adam shrugged helplessly. Sirius. Didn't you think you were in the same group with the slug at that time? Adam, then you are quite accurate in judging people. Okay. Professor Dumbledore felt a little headache after hearing this. He waved his wand to remove the cleaning in Sirius' mouth and looked at Adam. I have a general understanding of what happened before. Since you still have something to do, go first. Adam nodded to Professor Dumbledore and turned to leave the headmaster's office. Professor Dumbledore looked at Ron and Hermione again. Can you go to the hospital wing and help me invite Madame Pomfrey? I may need her help here. Hermione and Ron also left the headmaster's office. Professor Dumbledore looked at Professor Lupin, then at Pettigrew, who was pretending to be dead, and finally at Sirius. He crossed his fingers on the table and leaned forward slightly. So, where should we start? Sirius. Is Professor Snape relieved now? Adam muttered to himself, then shook the Felix Felicis in front of his eyes with 2 fingers. The golden potion shone brightly in the winter sun. Adam, is this really a lucky potion? Cock and Spike couldn't help but stick their heads out of their bags. Luck, something as illusory as fate is too elusive. Even someone as powerful as Clowreed can only foresee the future, but he can't create magic that can make people lucky. Of course not. If it is a real lucky potion, I can't imagine what materials are used to make it. Adam shook his head. The lucky potion can only bring a person to the best state. In this state, all abilities of a person will be maximized, and things will naturally go smoothly, giving people an illusion of good luck. In short, the lucky potion can help people do things that can be done by human power more smoothly, but if you feel that you can win the lottery after drinking it, it is probably because you drank too much lucky potion. Is that so? Xiao Ke was a little disappointed. Even so, it is still a very powerful potion. Sibby couldn't help but sigh. Yes, and it was made by the youngest potion master of this century. If you don't finish a bottle in one gulp, or take it for several days in a row, there will be almost no side effects. Adam sighed again. Unfortunately, I don't seem to be able to use this. With the double cards in hand, a bottle of Felix Felicis directly allowed him to achieve Felix Felicis' freedom, but he had almost no difficult things that required the help of Felix Felicis. Felix Felicis seems to enhance thinking ability. If I had drunk this when looking for someone before, would it have been smoother? Adam reflected on it and it seemed to be true. Well, learn from the lesson. Next time Eugene's parents are lost, remember to drink a sip of Felix Felicis before looking for them. Passing the corner in front, Eugene happened to hear. A little touched, but not that touched. Anyway, thank you. Not noticing Eugene's complicated eyes behind him, Adam went all the way back to Hogsmeade Village. Because there was still some time before the appointment in the afternoon, he went to the Three Broomsticks bar and went to the bar. So he sat down. I feel like I can open a pub in the future. Adam looked around and said thoughtfully. Compared to staying in the restaurant, sitting at the bar and listening to the people in the pub bragging sounds like a more interesting choice. As for the pub business, he didn't consider it. Anyway, he didn't care whether it made money or not. Speaking of which, when he masters the magic of the time card in the future, won't he be able to create decades or hundreds of years of aged wine at will? 8,000-year-old daughter's red wine. Well, it seems that it is impossible to drink. You should let Ms. Rosmerta go. Adam raised his head and it turned out that Cedric came over with butter beer. Pulling out a chair and sitting down, Cedric looked helpless. Look at the shops in Hogsmeade that were once popular. Since your shops opened, their business has been much worse. The Three Broomsticks and Zonko's joke shop are both deserted, and Honeyduke's candy store has even closed down directly. To be precise, I bought it. Do you see the new sign? It will be called Dream Dessert Workshop in the future. Adam shook his finger. It will open in a few days. I have to say that wizards are more convenient to decorate. Muggles probably won't even be able to get a sign in a few months. For infrastructure, you really can't understand what amazing efficiency means unless you go abroad to see it. It means that you find your own efficiency so amazing in comparison. Cedric was choked by Adam's words, and finally found his voice. That is, Mrs. Putafoot's tea house, because it is suitable for dating, the business has not been greatly affected. So should I open another boutique afternoon tea house? Adam touched his chin and thought. I also passed by Mrs. Putafoot's tea house and took a look. The layout is too casual. Everyone goes there for a date. It can only be said that it is quieter there, which is more suitable for dating than a noisy bar. Chun Chun is a general among short people, and it is like this because of the habits left by previous seniors. As he said, Adam's tone became much happier. If it were me, I would change the layout and design booths for dating couples, set up a photo wall, message wall, and love locks at the door, and then launch various packages. Stop, stop, stop. Are you going to make all the shops in Hogsmeade yours? Cedric looked a little desperate. If so, I have only one request. Don't change too much after you acquire this tea house. Leave a sweet memory for everyone who dated here before. Looking at Adam's expression, he knew that Madame Putafoot's tea house would probably not be able to beat him. No, it would definitely not be able to beat him. Chapter 147. I just mentioned it casually. I may not want to open any other stores by then. Adam took a sip of milk tea and said faintly when Cedric breathed a sigh of relief. Or maybe I will just take over Hogsmeade and turn it into a big shopping mall. Are you kidding? Cedric asked tentatively. Who knows? Adam chewed pearls, looking like he was not responsible for any of his words. He was planning to open an amusement park, so what was a shopping mall? He might really do it by then. The first floor will open a tavern, afternoon tea house, dream dessert workshop and Cologne's rare birds and animals. The second floor will sell student supplies, accessories, and sundries, and open a branch of magic trick shop. The third floor will sell boys' and girls' clothing, ranging from affordable and even second-hand to luxury brands. The fourth floor is a formal restaurant just right to divide Chinese and Western food and wizarding specialties into several stores, and the fifth floor is a cinema. Then there are several fast food, milk tea and snacks on each floor, and a separate snack street on the basement floor. It's perfect. If Hogwarts didn't allow students to stay overnight in Hogsmeade, Adam could even open another floor of a hotel. The only thing to worry about is that the students of Hogwarts and the residents of Hogsmeade may not be able to withstand his fleecing. As expected, he still has to fleece tourists. Maybe he can open another chain store in Diagon Alley? Anyway, when Voldemort comes to power, the land price in Diagon Alley should also plummet. If there are few sellers, Adam will buy a piece of land and collect rent. If there are many sellers, Adam will directly open a shopping mall in Diagon Alley. After coming back to his senses, Adam looked at Cedric in front of him. By the way, why didn't you go on a date with Cho today, and came here to drink alone? Although it is butter beer, it is also alcohol. Although coming to Hogsmeade seems to be a good opportunity to play, Hogwarts Castle itself is large and magical enough. Senior students are not very enthusiastic about coming to Hogsmeade if there is nothing to buy. I came to find you after asking Cologne where you were. Cedric took another sip of butterbeer, frowned and thought for a while before speaking. It's mainly because of Eugene's matter. He was too devoted to training some time ago. I'm not saying that his dedication is bad, but his condition is very wrong, even a little desperate. I know. Adam knew why Cedric came to find him after hearing this. It is estimated that Cedric had also looked for Uther and others before, but failed to ask, so he came to ask him in the end. Fortunately, he was the last one to be asked. Something happened at Eugene's home before, and it has been resolved now. He will adjust his condition later. Oh. Nodding, Cedric did not ask in detail, but since it was okay, it was good. After drinking the rest of the butterbeer in one gulp, Cedric wiped the hops casually, raised the cup to signal, and left. After having a casual meal of roasted chicken legs and rice at noon, Adam went directly to Colin's house. Colin's father Stephen was already waiting for him there. As soon as Adam arrived, he took him to meet the person who was interested in selling the property. The other party's son was transferred to India 2 years ago. Because he did a good job and thought the food there was good, he planned to settle down there. Besides, the treatment of British wizards in India was really good. After considering it for 2 years, the other party also intended to move there. Now Adam planned to buy it, which was just right. Well, the food was good, he was speechless for a moment, but Colin's father should not have mentioned to the other party what Adam bought the land for. By the way, the management of the wizarding world is really loose. If you buy this land, you can do whatever you want with it as long as it is not illegal. Because both parties wanted to trade sincerely, and Colin's father acted as a matchmaker, the transaction was completed very smoothly. After signing the contract, the land and the house on it belonged to Adam. Because he left in a hurry, the other party did not even bring large furniture. Standing in front of the house, Adam nodded with satisfaction. The house in front of him was at the corner of Hogsmeade Village, at the blunt angle of a Y intersection, with 3 roads leading to the prosperous commercial area, residential area, and edge of Hogsmeade Village, that is, the area where rare birds and animals are located. It perfectly took into account Adam's requirements and the dining needs of the Colin family. Houses in Hogsmeade Village are still very popular. This time it happened to catch up, otherwise it would be difficult to find someone willing to sell. Adam was not too surprised to hear Stephen's words. Hogsmeade itself is a famous tourist attraction, and it is also next to Hogwarts. Of course, it is very popular. After saying goodbye to Stephen, Adam sat at the door of the newly bought property and couldn't help but start thinking question. If he wants to buy a large piece of land in Hogsmeade Village, then apart from using money to buy it, he can only wait until Voldemort is powerful and Professor Snape becomes the headmaster. But the question is, should he keep Voldemort for that long? Forget it. If Voldemort is eliminated too early, the entire British wizarding world will always be stagnant, with a corrupt and outdated Ministry of Magic, and nobles who claim to be pure-blooded. If Adam wants to become bigger and stronger, he will be bound by the original rules and cannot move his hands and feet. Since there is Voldemort, a ready-made game breaker, why not make good use of it? Moreover, the wizarding world has only so much wealth. If Adam does not want to print money casually and cause inflation, and wants to occupy some resources, then he can either make the cake bigger or clear out a few people who have previously divided the cake. However, only children make choices. Adam chooses to have both. He wants to make the cake bigger, but he wants both the bigger part and the original cake. If possible, Adam even wants to take this opportunity to take the financial system back from the goblins. It's not that Adam loves money, but mainly because these resources are the right to speak. If you don't take them, someone else will take them. Just look at Professor Dumbledore, who chose to support Fudge instead of being the Minister of Magic. The most powerful wizard of this century was forced to step down as the headmaster. Thinking of Professor Dumbledore, who knocked Fudge and others unconscious but could only leave through Fawkes, Adam felt a sense of injustice. Do good people really have to be pointed at with guns? Then Adam wants to say sorry, he is not a good person. He was sorted into Hufflepuff, not because of the sorting hat, but because he wanted to go there himself. Although he is sincere to his brothers, if you really look at it, Draco, the little Malfoy, can be regarded as innocent and kind compared to Adam. Adam didn't plan to play power. He didn't understand that kind of thing, so he chose to play economics. With 2 cards and the Philosopher's Stone in hand, he could beat anyone in this aspect, and the opponent had better pray that Adam only plays economics with him. By then, he will hold Gringotts in one hand and the monopoly industry of the British wizarding world in the other. Whether the wizarding world is in chaos or not, it's up to Adam to decide. He can even develop into the Ministry of Magic of other countries. The industrial dumping that the British Muggles did back then, can't Adam do it? Clothes and accessories, potion materials, magical animals, and their derivatives. The cost of these things on Adam's side is so low that it can make anyone despair. In this way, Adam can completely control the wizarding world through economy. Chapter 148. Christmas is coming, and the earth is covered with silver. The black hand that will cover the entire wizarding world in the future is now dozing in front of the fireplace with a cat in his arms. Fudge came to Hogwarts some time ago and took away Pettigrew and the Dementors outside Hogwarts, but the wanted order for Sirius was still not removed. Apart from that, there is almost nothing else to do. The decoration of the store is also on track. Life in Hogwarts is really easy and comfortable. We are back. The door of the dormitory was pushed open, and Cologne couldn't help but retract his feet when he saw Adam waking up on the sofa. It's okay, I'm awake, come in. Adam stretched and shook his head habitually before remembering that he was still in human form, so he grabbed 2 handfuls of hair and looked at the door of the dormitory. Very good, all 4 of them are back. Meeting. The 4 of them put their bags away, sat on the sofa, and took some melon seeds and candies from the plate to eat. Ahem. This meeting mainly involves the following matters. Pushing the glasses frame he got from nowhere, Adam looked at the parchment in his hand. First, regarding the small shop, the decoration of the Dream Dessert Workshop has been completed, and it is planned to open on the weekend before Christmas, so the small shop naturally does not need to bear such a heavy dessert sales business. Yes, it is heavy. You know, Adam relies on his own clout cards, so when he launches new products, he really wants to do whatever he wants, from shortbread cakes to sugar lotus root 8 treasure porridge, he sells everything. Just for candy, how many combinations of various shapes and flavors are there? This also led to Uther and others taking a long time to remember which desserts were in which part of the dining car, and it is still not very clear until now. Now Adam directly puts most of the desserts that are relatively easy to store, such as candy and shortbread, in the Dream Dessert Workshop for sale, and the small shop only needs to sell those desserts with strong immediacy, such as milk tea and 4-fruit soup. Of course, no one had any objection to this. The store was originally Adam's business. If they were not helping to look after Adam now, they would not have to tell them. Speaking of which, Adam, you were planning to hire me and Eugene as store managers before, why is Ambrosio the store manager now? Bernard said, touching his chin. Because I found a job that is more suitable for you. The plan was messed up, but Adam glanced at the parchment, which only had a few outlines written casually, so he simply threw it aside and continued. Speaking of which, does any one of you want to be the Minister of Magic? Hey! As soon as these words came out, the 4 of them were stunned. No. How, do you have a connection? Bernard couldn't help but speak. That's the Minister of Magic. If it were a Muggle, it would be the Prime Minister of Great Britain. How can you say it as casually as opening a branch and appointing a store manager? Yet. Adam nodded. It's a bit complicated to explain in detail, so I'll make it short. The mysterious man is about to be resurrected, and he will probably clean up the Ministry of Magic at that time. After that, I have enough confidence to push you to the position of Minister of Magic as long as you are willing. Wait, wait, wait. Uther rubbed his temples. Speaking of which, he learned this from Adam. Why don't you be more specific and tell a long story? Your brief one is a bit too concise and contains too much information. First of all, who is the mysterious man? The mysterious man, it can't be that one. Cologne couldn't help but blanched. The one who was defeated by Harry Potter. Yes, that's it. Didn't he die a long time ago? Dead, but not completely dead. Adam nodded. He has been in a state of residual soul, and he will be resurrected in a year or two. Hiss. Cologne couldn't help but take a breath. Did you divine this? Eugene looked at Adam thoughtfully. It's half reasoning and half divination, mainly reasoning. Do you remember our first defense against the dark arts professor? Professor Quirrell? Yes, Voldemort was on him at the time, and the basilisk in the second year of the Chamber of Secrets was also created by Voldemort's Horcrux. Horcrux. Uther frowned. No wonder you said he was dead but not completely dead. Hey? You know about Horcruxes? Looking at Uther, Adam was a little surprised. As for research on how to resurrect and how to not die, our family is still very famous, right? After hearing Uther's explanation, Adam thought about it and said. Then why did they make themselves mummies instead of using Horcruxes to prolong their lives? Because the Horcrux extends life in the world, and the world does not need an immortal pharaoh. Uther shook his head. And the soul after being divided is not recognized by the god Amon-Ra. Adam understood. No one cares if you go to the underworld and never get immortality, anyway, no one can really know the things in the underworld, but if you want to live forever in the world, you have to ask your son, wife, and ministers if they agree. What? Only you will be immortal? In this case, if you lose the recognition of the god Amon-Ra, it will be really difficult for the pharaoh to survive. The leg is still twitching, and the linen is probably wrapped around it. Osiris misses you in the underworld. Uther explained to everyone what the Horcrux was, which saved Adam's effort. During this time, Adam changed a drink for everyone. Why is mine brown sugar ginger tea? Cologne couldn't help frowning after taking a sip. You and Eugene both drink brown sugar ginger tea. It's cold now and you have to train in the snow. Don't catch a cold. I only added 2 peeled ginger slices 5 minutes before serving, so the ginger flavor won't be too strong. Adam said so, and Cologne could only drink it in small sips. Eugene looked relaxed. What a joke! When Adam didn't know how to use the purification charm to remove the onions, ginger, and garlic from the dishes, he would eat ginger disguised as minced fish 3 or 4 times out of 10 when he ate braised fish fillets. He is completely immune to this little bit of ginger flavor. Back to the point, Adam didn't say much about the future, just said that the mysterious man would definitely be resurrected, and everyone should be prepared when the time comes. Should I let my parents go abroad for a while? Bernard couldn't help but frown. He had some understanding of the mysterious man. He knew that he was a fanatical supporter of pure blood theory, and many of his Death Eaters enjoyed torturing and killing muggles. It's better this way. Adam nodded. The mysterious man's hand cannot reach abroad for the time being. If you need it, I can provide a safe house. Uther had mentioned the safe house on the Hogwarts Express before the start of the school year. Bernard's eyes lit up when he heard it. I'll go back and talk to my parents during the holidays. Yet, Uther doesn't have to worry about the remaining 3 people. Eugene and Colin's families are also fine. Their families naturally have ways to protect themselves. As long as they don't raise a banner to openly oppose Voldemort, they don't have to worry about the safety of their families. Adam has already prepared a safe house for his family, and he doesn't need any persuasion when the time comes. After all, Grandpa and Grandma went directly to China to hide back then. They obviously understand the principle of saving people and losing land. Ms. Lee and Mr. Reed's store is not so inseparable from people. If it doesn't work, those industries will be closed first and reopened later. What about the future oligarchs? Chapter 149. Bernard still had to go back and ask his family about the issue of moving to a safe haven, so the topic returned to the selection of the Minister of Magic. Are you really so confident that you can push someone to the position of Minister of Magic? Bernard still found it difficult to understand, and Cologne nodded silently. Yeah, it always feels so awkward for a few of us students to discuss this kind of issue. Don't worry about it, just take it as a casual talk. Adam waved his hand casually. Well, Minister of Magic, this kind of politician feels boring. Bernard looked tangled. I can do anything. Eugene didn't react much. Then Eugene is indeed suitable to be the Minister of Magic at that time, and he looks more stable. What do you mean? Do I look unstable? The 4 looked at Bernard, who was filled with righteous indignation, and looked him up and down carefully, and shook their heads in unison. Bernard. I'm angry, but I can't do it. In comparison, I think another profession is more suitable for you. Adam suddenly had an idea, and a light bulb popped up above his head. You go to be in charge of the Wizengamot and Azkaban. Hey! Bernard didn't understand, but was shocked. I can understand the Wizengamot, but Azkaban. Isn't there only Dementors in that damn place besides the prisoners? What is there to be responsible for? The judicial system in the wizarding world has always puzzled me. There are so many loopholes like a hornet's nest. Many prisoners were hastily released, such as the former Death Eaters who claimed that they under the control of the you-know-who's Imperious Curse, he was freed from prison. The Imperious Curse? I remember that it seemed to be an unforgivable curse. Wake up! This is not the point I want to talk about. Adam reached out and grabbed Bernard's shoulder and shook it. If we use potions like Truth Serum, or use a Pensiev, many unjust, false and wrongful convictions can be avoided. The distorted judicial system of the wizarding world may have been formed under the influence of various factors before, but after the you-know-who cleared away all obstacles, we can completely establish a more sound judicial system. As for the penal system, the Dementors are unreliable, but it is a bit too hasty to put all the people in Azkaban. Bernard's eyes lit up. If you want to say that, then I won't be sleepy anymore. This position is really suitable for me. Oh my god, is this really something we students should consider? Cologne couldn't help but mutter. By the way, you will suddenly become the future Minister of Magic, the Chief of the Wizengamot, and the Warden of Azkaban? In addition, Uther will be the Minister of Magic of Egypt in the future, and Adam always feels that he will not be satisfied with just opening a restaurant and a dessert shop. I, the future manager of the exotic animals store, always feel a little out of place. There is nothing out of place about this. Everyone has their own ambitions, and the exotic animals business spans several countries, which is not small. Adam shrugged. Besides, if you also want to work in the Ministry of Magic, you can also operate it at that time. How about the director of the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures? Professor Scamander will probably be very happy to contribute to the management and protection of magical animals. Cologne admitted that he was a little moved for a moment. But, we have rare animals at home. Wouldn't it be better to give it to Kelly? Adam thought about it. If it doesn't work, you can sell it to me. I want to try to buy Hogsmeade Village while the mysterious man is rampant and the housing prices are plummeting. Buy it? The whole Hogsmeade Village? Cologne looked up after cracking his fingers for a while, his face full of confusion. Where did you get so much money? Is this money legal? Need I say that? What legal business can make a lot of money? Bernard was inexplicably excited. Have you finally made up your mind to rob Gringotts? Of course not by robbery. This amount of money, well, should be legal. Anyway, I will have a way by then. Adam thought about it, but still didn't tell everyone about the double cards or the Philosopher's Stone. It's not that I don't trust their relationship. Given their relationship, it's okay for Adam to give each of them a Philosopher's Stone. It's just that Adam doesn't trust their strength to keep the secret. At least they have to wait until Voldemort is gone and their strength is strong enough to keep the secret. Okay, then this question is over. Seeing Cologne in a dilemma, Adam simply started the next topic. The next thing is related to the previous one. It's about Rowena Ravenclaw's crown. Adam took out the crown from his bag and put it in at the table, looking at the four stunned people, mainly Uther. Uther, you are more familiar with Professor Flitwick, and you usually go to him to learn dueling knowledge. You can find an opportunity to tell him something about this crown. Aren't you also familiar with Professor Flitwick? I rarely go to Professor Flitwick this year, and it would be a bit unnatural to go to him suddenly. Adam's transformation of wizard magic into a magic circle has been going very smoothly. He can complete his homework independently, and naturally he no longer bothers Professor Flitwick for assistance, including Professor McGonagall. Now in Adam's free time, he still runs to Professor Snape, Professor Sprout and Professor Sinistram more often. After saying that, Adam looked at Eugene. It just so happens that Eugene's parents are explorers, so we can say that this crown was accidentally discovered by Eugene's parents. What? How can this be? I don't agree. Eugene was shocked. That was the relic of Ms. Ravenclaw. It was a great achievement to find this treasure. How could he steal it? Not to mention that he stole it from Adam. Don't rush to refuse. Finding Rowena Ravenclaw's crown is a natural impression for all wizards from Ravenclaw. Most wizards from Ravenclaw are smart people who know how to protect themselves. They are engaged in research and clerical work in all aspects of the wizarding world. Adam explained. The you-know-who will not target them, and they will not resist the you-know-who. After the you-know-who is eliminated, they will be the majority of the wizarding world except Hufflepuff. If you want to become the Minister of Magic in the future, the support of this group of people will make it much easier for you. Then I can't take the credit from you. You must have spent a lot of effort to find it. I found this thing in the utility room of the Room of Requirement. Adam's words almost choked Eugene. They also knew about the existence of the Room of Requirement. Adam had told them a long time ago, but they didn't need that place much. Adam looked at Bernard thoughtfully. Anyway, that place actually contains the relics of Lady Ravenclaw. Has no one discovered it over the years? Chapter 150. Even so. Eugene wanted to say something, but Adam grabbed his wrist. I want this credit to make the Ravenclaw wizards have a better impression of me. It has no meaning except to attract a few more customers, but I don't lack that little money. Looking into Eugene's eyes, Adam said sincerely. Comparatively, you can help me more by becoming the Minister of Magic. Eugene, take this credit, and then work hard to be a good Minister of Magic. Although Adam has full confidence that he can push Eugene to the position of Minister of Magic at that time, it depends on Eugene himself to what he can do in the position. I will. Eugene nodded firmly. Hufflepuffs have many characteristics, but stubbornness is not one of them. Professor Scamander, who illegally smuggled magical animals all the way on the global tour, has fully demonstrated the flexible side of Hufflepuffs. The matter of revealing the crown should be done slowly, and the main focus is on being inadvertent, so Christmas will come as scheduled before that. After spending 2 Christmases together, everyone decided not to spend this year's Christmas holiday at Hogwarts. Cologne planned to talk to his parents and Kelly about future plans, Bernard wanted to talk to his parents about going to the safe house, Eugene wanted to go home to see his parents whom he had never met, and Adam went home just because everyone had gone home. As for Uther, Adam, you won't leave me alone in the cold dormitory, right? Well, not to mention that it is not certain whether the rats have been solved yet. Even if Uther could, it is impossible for him to go back to Egypt during these few days of vacation. Adam had no choice but to take Uther back to the safe house, but fortunately he prepared the key to the safe house. After the Christmas dinner, they went their separate ways. When they met again, Adam couldn't help but pay attention to Eugene's condition. Well, it looks good. It seems that Mrs. Lauren's efforts during this period have been fruitful, and Eugene's parents haven't made any trouble. How was your Christmas? Uther was full of energy. He had eaten better these days than at Christmas dinner. There was no other way. Hogwarts dinner had to cater to everyone's tastes, and there were many dishes that were not convenient to put on a Western-style banquet. For example, hot pot, grilled skewers, iron pot stewed pancakes. Thinking back to the delicious food he had eaten during this holiday, Uther couldn't help swallowing his saliva. Seeing his expression, Cologne knew what he was thinking. His face turned green and his lips moved a few times. Adam noticed this and couldn't help but say. Didn't you all bring the pre-prepared dishes I prepared for you before you went back this time? Even if they don't taste that good after heating, they won't be that bad. Why do you look like that? Don't mention it. Cologne couldn't help but blush. Kelly said that I can eat delicious food every day at Hogwarts. Keep the pre-prepared dishes for them. I've only eaten bread and jam these days. Woohoo QAQ. The last cry was so blood-curdling. Hiss. Adam couldn't help but take a breath, hugged Cologne, and patted him. Look at how greedy you are, you've suffered so much, I'll grill you an 8-eyed giant spider later. Don't go to the auditorium for dinner, eat grilled fish in the dormitory. Uther and the others certainly had no objection. Eat grilled fish first, then add soup and water to boil the grilled fish, and then add hot pot ingredients after eating the grilled fish. It is simple and delicious, and it is also a common meal in the dormitory. That night, in the principal's office, in addition to Professor Dumbledore and Fawkes, a third creature who will live here permanently arrived. Albus, I don't seem to see the student you mentioned. The man who spoke had grey hair and wrinkles on his skin. He was obviously old, but at this time his hands and feet were shackled. While talking, he moved his legs, as if he wanted to cross his legs, but he couldn't do it because of the shackles. Adam will probably eat in the dormitory tonight, and his roommates are not here. Professor Dumbledore sighed with some regret. Even if he is the principal, there is no reason to eat at the student's own small kitchen in the dormitory. Oh? It sounds like you like him very much. Professor Dumbledore nodded without hesitation and showed a loving smile. Yes. You really prefer Hufflepuff. This is not a preference. I like every student who respects teachers, is friendly to classmates, and is full of enthusiasm and hope for life. What's more? What's more? The man narrowed his eyes. What's more, his cooking skills are really good. Whether it's making desserts or cooking. Professor Dumbledore smacked his lips with some nostalgia. The dinner we had that day was from his chef's Christmas dinner. Thinking of the dinner he had with the man in front of him on Christmas, Grindelwald raised his eyebrows and felt inexplicably better. After chatting for a few words, Professor Dumbledore looked at Grindelwald, and the loving smile on his face disappeared, replaced by a rare coldness. You stay here during this time. I know, you said before that I will not leave you or, this little bird's sight. Grindelwald turned his head and reached out to try to tease Fawkes. However, Fawkes burst into fire and disappeared before being touched. Grindelwald was stunned, remembering that he had killed a unicorn before, and it might be that this breath attracted the repulsion of the phoenix. Although he found the reason, Grindelwald still sighed. It's impolite. Professor Dumbledore, who watched Fawkes openly run to Adam to eat and drink. It would be even better if I could sleep with you. Grindelwald turned back and looked at Professor Dumbledore expectantly, but only got a cold stare as a reply. Okay. Grindelwald shrugged, avoiding Professor Dumbledore's cold eyes, and leaned on the back of the chair. Why don't you loosen the shackles on me a little? It's really uncomfortable to sit like this. I'm just a poor old man who doesn't even have a wand. There's no need to be so vigilant against me. In response, Professor Dumbledore just sneered. Even without a wand, Grindelwald is one of the most dangerous wizards in the world. Without a wand, he just needs to spend more effort when casting spells. Not to mention that it is not difficult for Grindelwald to get a wand. Hearing this sneer, Grindelwald lowered his eyes. Then at least tell me why you suddenly came to me and brought me under your nose to monitor me. It can't be that you miss the past and miss me, right? Professor Dumbledore fell silent. He couldn't tell him about the Sky Garden. Besides, although he has completely lost trust in him now, that past is indeed a beautiful memory in his life. I'm dying. Grindelwald's eyes widened slightly, and his pupils shrank to the point of a needle.